Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where we talk all things Commander. And today we are talking about the new cards from Commander Masters in both the Slivers deck and also the Planeswalker deck. So, join with me today is Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive. How are you doing?
I am doing good. Excited to talk about some new Magic cards.
Phil, Brewer's Kitchen. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Just love some slivers. Kind of questionable cards, but that's, yeah.
Already giving a little preface. Tomer, Budget Commander, how are you doing?
I'm very excited to be here. I'm very upset that I missed the last recording because you all have some terrible takes on some new precon cards. So I'm here to set the record straight a little bit. I'm very
Tomer's
excited.
here to lay down the hammer, and I'm your host, Richard. And today we're going to navigate all the new cards in the decks. But before we do that, we have a sponsor. Today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. Card Conduit lets you skip all the typing, time, and work associated with buy listing. Their curated service lets you send in as many cards as you want with buy list value of $1 or more, and you'll pay just a 5% service fee. You can also use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards and pay only 2%. You get a detailed report and fast payment once your order is processed. So you can head over to cardconduit.com/mtggoldfish and get 10% off. So thank you, Card Conduit. And with that out of the way, let's jump straight into the goodies. One of my first decks, Slivers, and the OG, kind of the OG tribal, where you didn't even need lords because they all just pumped each other. But
They're all lords.
They're all lords. The face card of the set is Sliver Gravemother. So a 5-color sliver, one of each color, 5 mana value, 6/6. The legend rule doesn't apply to slivers you control. Each sliver card in your graveyard has Encore X, where X is its mana value, and the Gravemother has Encore 5. Now, Encore is... so if a card in your graveyard has Encore, you pay its cost, you exile it, you make a token copy for each opponent you have, so that would be 3, if 3 people are still alive, and then those tokens must attack that opponent if able. So you make 3 tokens, and then one each goes to each opponent. But if they're tapped or whatever, you don't need to attack.
Then they sacrifice.
Yeah. And then at the end and stuff, they go away. Mm-hmm. How do we like our 5-color sliver?
It's fine.
Or our deck.
I mean, in slivers, I think I would always play this card. I actually, as I knew this podcast was coming up, I started to count how many good slivers there were. And I think there's maybe 25 slivers that I actively want in every sliver deck. But I probably want to play 40 slivers in my sliver deck because you really get powered up for each sliver you play. So the more the better. So I don't think this is one of the top 10 or even 20 slivers in existence, but I think it's in that range where I would play it in every 5-color sliver deck. It's good enough that this is one of the staple levels. So I guess that's very good in any sliver deck. It's not, you're not going to play outside of slivers ever, I don't think. Maybe in some tribal shenanigans, but in general, you're never going to play it in any other deck. But in slivers, I think I play it every if for me, I guess.
As a 99 though, right? So
yeah, if you're going to rank it against, there's 5 other 5-color legendary slivers, and I think this would be in the lower tier of the 5-color legends. If you want to be most powerful, the Cascade one is really busted, or Sliver Overlord's really busted. So I would probably, those I think are most optimal as your commander. I think this is okay as your commander, and I think it has some cool combo potential with encoring back with a mana sliver. If you encore a 1 mana sliver, you get 3 of those. They tap for 3 mana, so then you can encore something and have this huge combo-y graveyard turn. So it does something unique that we haven't seen with other slivers. But in terms of just raw power, I don't think it's the first sliver powerful or Sliver Overlord powerful. I think those are the clearly strongest 5-color slivers.
Let's go on our first tangent here. So as a commander of any sliver deck, okay, let me quickly go over what options we have. Okay, we have Hive Lord, which is just slivers you control are indestructible.
Boring.
Very simple. Legion, all other slivers get +1/+1 for each other sliver on the battlefield.
It's a coat of arms.
A coat of arms.
Also kind of boring.
But big. Sliver
pretty good with Encore.
You can pay 3 mana to tutor up a sliver from your library and put it in your hand, and then 3 mana to gain control of target sliver. So a tutor, and if you have an opponent who's playing slivers, just randomly get them. Sliver Queen, reserveless card, very expensive. 2 mana, put a 1/1 colorless sliver on the battlefield, token generator. And then first sliver, Cascade, it cascades. And then sliver spells, you have Cascade.
Cascade.
So Overlord and first sliver are undoubtedly like the 2 strongest, right? Especially Overlord, because you just tutor whatever other thing you think is strong and you get it.
Yeah. I think Sliver Queen is also has a
Queen,
high
I think, is up there,
power
right?
ceiling, because there's a lot of combos of it, like Mana Echoes, for example, generates colorless mana for each creature that enters the battlefield that shares a creature type. So if you have Sliver Queen and like one other sliver, I think it's mana free to activate the first time, and then you make infinite colorless mana, and then you have like Impact Tremors or something, you just win the game.
I mean, even without, so that's like a combo that people play outside of sliver decks. But even like without the combo, like making slivers is what you want, because they're not 1/1s, right? They're like 4/4s that do 3 things on ETB and can sack for value and et cetera, right? So once you have your good slivers out, all you need are just like dirtily sliver tokens, and this provides it. But you know, I think those 3 make the top tier, with Sliver Queen maybe lower than the others, and then Sliver Legion is just like raw stats. Can't go wrong with that. And then Hive Lord is like whatever, indestructible. Especially in 2023, it's like you're farewellable still. So I don't know. Like
I think you undersell Indestructible a little bit, because like, okay, yes, the farewell does exist in the format, but like not every deck is running exile removal. And also it pairs up really well with other forms of protection. So you can drop Hive Lord. Like slivers, their biggest weakness is board wipes, because they're all synergy pieces. So you need to have a critical mass of them, or else they're not very threatening. They're not like Haymaker deck. So board wipes are very effective against them, because you have to place a lot of slivers on the battlefield. You have to put a lot of your hand, your board state onto the battlefield, and it's vulnerable to board wipes. So that buys you a lot of protection. Like if you have indestructible to other things, now your opponents are digging for the exile removal, and that does buy you time to find, you know, your Shafari's Protection, your Guardian of Faith, and stuff like that. You want to pair it up, or Clever Concealment. You want to pair it up with additional protection, but that kind of like keeps you in the running. But Grave Mother, I think, is actually really fun, and I think that's like my 4th.
Right? In the 99, but
I mean, Hive Lord is just so boring. It's just so boring. Why would you play Hive Lord? Why would you play
Command Zone though, right?
Hive Lord? No, like same with Sliver Legion.
Hive Lord
it's
is
not
a very
that
strong
they're
99 commander.
It's not that they're bad cards. It's just like there's some really interesting Sliver 5-color legends. So I don't know why you'd pick one of the like, oh, I'm a heroic intervention. Like that's a powerful effect. I'm glad it exists. I'll put it in my deck. But why wouldn't I want like a Maelstrom Wander in my command zone, or like a demonic tutor every turn in my command zone, when I'm like, heroic intervention just isn't that fun. Or same with Sliver Legion. It's not bad. It's strong. It makes your slivers huge, but there's just like some really fun 5-color sliver commanders. So I don't know. For me, Legion and Hive Lord are the 2 that are just like boring. It's not that they're not powerful. They're just like not as interesting in the command zone for me.
I would just say
all 5 existing ones would go in your sliver deck and be one of the best slivers in your sliver deck.
Assuming budget is not a concern.
As your commander would be skewed towards the earlier ones.
Yeah,
but I think you have to also build towards your meta a little bit, because like we've had metas in the recent past that are very board wipe heavy, and most fun for me if I'm playing a sliver deck is just having my slivers exist when I untap, you know. So sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. So I think that's like a meta
tutor
call.
The Hive Lord.
Yeah, but you place an overlord, and then it dies, and then you're like, well,
8 mana. Okay.
I know.
Back
okay,
to
well
the
then you have
precon.
Yes.
Precon, I think, is actually undersold. I think this is a graveyard style commander that is pretty interesting. For example, if you entomb a Sliver Legion is one of the best encore targets for this. If you entomb a Sliver Legion and you encore it with the Grave Mother, you're putting 3 Court of Arms onto the battlefield with haste. I think they're like 7/7s or something baseline, or 6/6s, and basically with each of them on the battlefield, it says each other sliver you have or each sliver gains +3/+3. With just having Sliver Legion and Sliver Grave Mother on the battlefield. And then you have any other creatures, any other slivers on the battlefield already, like just a couple other ones. Then they'll be like each other sliver has +5 or like it goes by integers, multiples of 3 or whatever. But it's a lot of damage. It's a lot of damage. They get +3/+3 for each other sliver on the battlefield. So if you have like 5 slivers, that means it's 15 15s. +15/+15s. They have haste. They smack everybody. Everybody dies. So there's a lot of really cool things. And there's like the harmonic sliver too. That like it's an ETB. It blows up. It's a disenchant effect. So if you encore that, you're getting like 3 disenchants on the battlefield. It's like blah 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 blah. Bing bing bing. Everything dies. It's a really good build around. I don't think it's the strongest, but it's very interesting, and I like it.
Does Encore work with end the turn effects like Obika?
Yes.
Like, can you
Obika, Sundial of the Infinite? Those can keep your things. If you populate the tokens, you keep the token copies. The originals will still die. So there's cool things you can be building around with it.
That's cool things, Tomer. Give me a relative ranking though. So if you were to do
it's in the bottom tier
commander, it would be top or bottom tier.
I would put it fourth. I'd probably go
or unique, like totally different.
I'd probably go like Overlord, Sliver Queen or First Sliver. Those are the top 3, and then I'd probably put this as 4.
Yeah,
I mean, I think I would agree with that. But I would also add, like, I think there's a pretty big drop between the top 3 and the bottom 3 for me as far as how excited I am to have them as my commander. I think the top 3 are like S tier, and then the bottom 3 are like B tier or something.
I think another problem to just consider, or like just an idea to consider, is that if you want to play Sliver deck, you basically can only bring Sliver Overlord to a high power table, because that commander is just incredibly powerful. It's like bringing like Narset Enlightened Master to a table. It's like you won't be able to play it at like mid power tables or low power tables for sure. And if you are, they're going to sandbag all their resources to make sure you don't play the game of Magic. Whereas Grave Mother is interesting enough and lower powerful enough that it is more acceptable at like mid power tables. So I think that's also one attribute to consider.
So its power is being bad. Yeah, that is a little.
When we're saying,
point, though.
There's no reason to play this. Why would I ever play Grave Mother over the absolute strongest sliver thing ever? But like you won't be able to run it, right? Like
I think Thomas has a point here, because I wouldn't say the same about the first sliver, because at least it's random what you cascade into, but tutoring every turn is inherently ultra competitive, and you're kind of playing it wrong if you don't go for the optimal line. So people know that. And that is it's also boring. Like, it kind of goes against the singleton nature of the format. So I would say, the Sliver Overlord is probably, you should probably not bring it to a casual deck, even though it might be technically the strongest. I still feel like you should probably choose the first Sliver, because Cascade is fun and it's random.
Isn't the first sliver even more broken though? Like, if the concern is I don't want my deck to be too strong, like, isn't the first sliver just as offensive in like casual play?
Sure, but at least you don't tutor your combo. I just
the bottom ones, if you think
it's like Sisay. Like, Sisay is the same. You say like, oh, you untap, you win the game, or you go easy on us, which both sucks for everybody except for the player, I guess. So if I see Sisay,
you guys are overselling. Like, this, you just kill it, right? And like, they have to get to like 7 mana to get value off of the first sliver, or 8 mana to get value off Sliver Overlord. But let's go back to Grave Mother.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. It's Encore is only for that turn, unless you do like end turn shenanigans, right? So it's kind of either a very scary value commander, right? So like Tomer said, if you get an ETB trigger or sliver, you get 3 ETBs. And if you get a static sliver, you get 3 of that static for that turn. And then every sliver you cast gets like triple activation of that static, depending on what it is. So it's kind of like Crater Hoof Sliver. Tomer's talking about casual. I don't know, like the first time you entomb a Sliver Legion and then wreck the board, like, everyone knows it's coming and they will murder you anytime you have any kind of reasonable board. So even for casual play, like that, once you show that line, like it's kind of scary, right? So it gives your Sliver deck a combo kill potential, but I don't know, so does Sliver Overlord, right? So I'm not sure it's that good, and it's expensive, and it needs setup, right? It needs you to have stuff in the graveyard. Like if you're putting Entomb in your Sliver deck, are you really doing the right thing? Like you're kind of all in on like the graveyard, which you typically aren't for Slivers, right? So to me, it's more of a get Wrathed and then get value, but like, why am I getting Wrath to begin with? Like Tomer said, you just never want to get Wrath. I'd rather spend my time avoiding the Wrath than planning for it. So I actually don't even know if I put this in my 99.
Well, there's a lot of you could take the Slivers in an angle that naturally they put themselves in the graveyard. Like one of my favorite cards
And then you exile
that
them.
is already that actually missed. Well, like there's Cycle. There's a Homing Sliver, for example. Each Sliver card in each player's hand has Sliver cycling 3. It's essentially giving all your Slivers like survival of the fittest. So you have to discard a Sliver to tutor up a Sliver, which you can then also discard. So you could discard your Encore targets, or like tutor up a good Encore target and discard that too. Or like Pyre of Heroes, it's like a tribal birthing pod. You sacrifice a creature and then you search your library for a creature card that shares a creature type equal to that creature with mana value equal to 1 more. So there's a lot of ways of like sacrificing your Slivers while doing value things. And then that kind of also naturally sets you up for the Sliver Grave Mother. So you don't have to run like Entomb and Buried Alive, which I agree is like if you're going for a thematic creature deck, then maybe you want to stick to thematic ways of enabling it. But they are there. And it gives a different spin to the archetype.
Yeah.
Give me a rank. Give me a rank.
4.
B.
Is it one of the best cards in your deck? Is it an okay card in your deck, or are you looking to cut it?
I think it's one of the best cards. It's an A for me.
I would disagree with it being one of the best cards. I think it's outside my top 10 or 20 Slivers in a commander deck, but I would never cut it.
So is that an A?
Okay,
I think
that's
it'd
a B.
Is it a B?
I'd put it at
like,
upper B.
I don't know if I'd say. I think it's a. So if you're playing Slivers, you need like 45 Slivers in your deck. I think this is probably
is it a
like.
staple in your Sliver deck?
I think this is probably in the top half. Like it's in the middle somewhere. For me, I think it's better than. I would put it as A. Maybe that's stretching it, but I would put it as A. Like I think it's a good card. I just don't think it's one of the like 10 or 15 strongest Slivers. It's like just outside that range.
Like Sliver number 11 or 16, that sounds decidedly
you still have
average
to-
to
Is
me.
that a B? Okay, then maybe it's a B then. Like that's how I view it. It's like one of the
Like,
like
is it a top 5 Sliver in your
no,
deck or something?
no, it's not.
right?
No.
Well, how many- you need
Is it
to
a top
run
10
like
Sliver?
you need to run at least like 15 Slivers in your Sliver deck, right?
Well, I mean,
Like,
so
what
the
are you
problem is
doing?
like the Lords are good. The Mana Slivers are like the best Slivers in your deck. 4 the other 4-color Legends are better. Like there's like even that's just 10 cards. Like I already named just in that sentence 10 cards that are better than this. So there's no way I can put it in my top 10. It's like 20-ish, which is still going to make every Sliver deck. Like every single time I'm going to have it in my deck, but it's
okay.
It's not
You're
one
new
of those.
Sliver precon away from getting cut, right? If they print like 5 to 10 more good Slivers, this is on the cutting block, right? Like this is.
I mean, maybe you might need
so
20
it's
more
average,
good
right?
Slivers.
Okay, wait. Okay, Phil, where are we at? One of the best.
I'll put it at
Slivers?
upper B, but I'm in general. So my first deck ever was Slivers as a child, and then I tried them in Commander and was very disappointed. So I'm very skeptical to the whole idea of banking everything on your creature surviving. That kind of solves this, but only one shot. I don't like
gives you
exiling
reach.
my stuff from the graveyard, so I would put it
so-
at B.
I personally wouldn't play this one. So I think it is. I think Seth's
Wow.
evaluation
still
is
play
what
it.
I agree with. It's like in kind of like the bottom tier of Slivers, and you can play it, but Slivers wants critical mass, right? Like you want to get your good Slivers out, and then you want to play like 2 mana 1/1s that like do 8 million things. So the 5 mana 6/6 like doesn't help that plan. And the Encore thing is very situational. Like it's setting up for a big bursty turn. So I don't really like that, right? So I would rather just build up the board, protect it, and then kill people without, like you got to do a lot of cute things to make this work, right? Like you got to get the sacking Sliver out, you got to get the cycling Sliver, you got to cycle it, and then you got to do the thing, and then you got to one-shot the table. So it's it's like okay, like it's just expensive and it does powerful things, but give me like the mana slivers, right? Give me the if I wanted to finish a game, like one sliver Legion, the coat of arms one is like enough. Right? Like, you don't need more. Like yes, 3 is funny, but like usually 1 is enough if you have enough slivers going. So
But if you don't have enough slivers, this gives you reach. Like, okay, you wipe the board, and I have a bunch of mana, I play this, and I encore Sliver Legion, I win.
Yeah, this is a nice like
'Cause they
way to
have
rebuild
haste.
after things go.
okay, here's
wrong.
a way to lose the game though, right? Your hand is like your 2 good slivers, Overlord and First Sliver, because they're
Yeah.
really good, right?
Yeah.
And then like some mana, and then this thing, like like you can't have so many top end sliver cards, right? Like you need to have, a mana curve, right? And of the top end sliver cards, there are more powerful ones, right? So this is playable. It does really good things, right? There's situations where it'll crush the table and will win the game, but I think it's replaceable. Like I think if you give me a random 5 mana sliver, I can replace this with it, and like I'm 99% as good.
All right, I will
So-
accept the B for the sake of moving on.
Yeah,
we
we
have many other cards. Let's go.
yeah. 5-hour podcast. Here we come.
Yeah.
Backup commander. Okay, so the backup commander is Ruka Rummel, biologist, 5 mana, 1 mana, 1 color of each, or 1 mana of each color, 3/3. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Slivers you control and non-token creatures you control are the chosen type in addition to the other creature types. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. 3 mana tap, create a colorless sliver creature token. I'm just gonna drop this right here. And this is
What?
this is Morophon 2.0, baby. You are taking this outside of slivers. You are playing it in a lot of tribal decks, and it's actually pretty good.
I don't get the point of playing it. Isn't the tribal deck already playing all cards from the tribe? So I would consider it a combo commander. Or I guess if you want to play Zubera. But
It's arcane adaptation in your command zone because you
Yeah,
access
it is
the 5
interesting.
colors.
Yes. So
But
obviously
that's-
any arcane adaptation combos would be interested in this, right? But even in a tribal deck, any color deck you build, you need support cards. You need ramp, you need removal, you need utility, all those things. In 2023, a lot of those come on creatures, right? Toski is now literally a bird if this is your commander, right? Like Sacred Tribe Elder triggers Kindred Discovery and all your shenanigans on the way down, right? They all benefit from the lords and things like that. So there are a lot of support cards that you'll be playing that are just creatures that are typically off theme, but it doesn't even matter because they're that strong. But now they trigger all your tribal things. So it's like everything is now tribal, Tomer. It's like really, really strong, right? Like imagine Sacred Tribe Elder triggered all your vampire things on the way in and on the way out.
If I
and-
may,
That's so
as,
cheaty.
as a
That's-
person
that's-
who's played a changeling deck for many, many years, I feel like if the cards if you have a whatever deck, you have a tribal deck, and you want to splash you have a bird deck and you want to splash your Toski or whatever, and you have a lot of these payoff cards for birds. You have like a lot of bird lords and everything, and your Toski would benefit a lot more. It would get even better in your deck to run it, to have it become a bird. Then I still probably wouldn't pick Raccoon Morel because it's not even a bird commander. It's just it helps a little bit. I don't know. I think this looks like a combo commander to me. And I feel like if you're like leaning on it a lot to be an arcane adaptation, then you're probably gonna be really sad when your 5 mana commander that doesn't have innate protection just dies, and then suddenly like half your deck is no longer that good. Because like you could only cast this like once or twice. I don't
you
know.
build your deck to keep your commander alive. If your commander is critical
Yeah, but
to
then,
your deck,
then if
right?
you're gonna build around to make your commander keep your commander alive, you gotta have a combo. You gotta have something. Like if your commander is that important for your deck to function, then
I don't know, people play Morophon. Right?
But-
Would you play Morophon?
Morophon's not very
Morophon gives you mana reduction.
yes,
Right?
but people-
This one turns on the rest of your tribe.
that.
Morophon
Morophon's
though.
not a good at commander. I'll say it because I've played him before I switched to Ur Dragon. He's
I
not
mean,
very
and-
good because he costs 6.
Well, and the thing about Morophon is you play it because your tribe doesn't have a commander, right? Like that's its primary purpose. People don't normally play like Morph-on vampires or Morph-on elves because you have a million vampire commander and elf commanders. So I think I mostly agree with Tomer. Yes, I'm glad there's another Morph-on option if you want to play badgers and there's no badger legend and now you have like a badger. That's cool that there's more than just Morph-on. But I'm not super high on the like, oh, I'm gonna play this and like turn my Sakura Tribe Elder into a tribe member or something. Like I don't know.
So now you can play badgers, they're green. So then you can play Sakura Tribe Elder, Wood Elves, and all that, and your badger deck just got a lot stronger. And you're playing all the badgers you can anyway, but you still have all these utility creatures you got to put in. So
there it's fine. There it's fine. But a lot of tribes have a commander now, right? Like we're getting, as Wizards prints more and more legends, like less and less tribes need these kind of cards because you get an actual tribe member.
Right? Remember the werewolf legends and stuff? Like maybe this actually beats some dedicated legends. But
you can't do that. You can't do no. That's scarecrows with changelings, Richard. No, you can't. You can't play a tribe that has Tovolar and be like, I'm Morph-on.
Why you guys got to gate people? How about people want to play tribal decks that are actually functional?
But also,
I think
you can't play ramp. Sorry, your rampant growth is not a vampire.
Your deck will not function, and you will like it.
You know why people were complaining, Richard.
So badgers actually have green sleeves, and if you sacrifice your Sakura Tribe Elder, you will get a badger out of it. So maybe that's not the best. So
Phil already has the badger tech. He's already have the deck already listed.
This card goes outside of Slivers, cool, right? And this card
hilariously
does a decent job outside.
It only goes outside of Slivers. I would never play this in Slivers, not at all. You could, but you shouldn't.
Like you could splash you could splash like one other tribe, for example. Like if you're going Grave Mother, for example, you want to have like a sacrifice graveyard themed Sliver deck. Maybe you pair up a couple zombies that are really good with that theme, for example. But
then
again,
they do nothing unless this exact one card in your 99 is on the battlefield, and if it dies, then your deck is horrible. Yeah, that's
exactly.
That's the worry.
I want to win the game if I'm going to put this as my commander.
So this is bad in Slivers, right? It's a C in Slivers.
It's a C in Slivers.
It's a C in Slivers.
Are you guys not agreeing that you play this outside of Slivers?
Yeah.
It's either a S or a C here. Like
I think it's a combo deck.
I just don't think it's an S. I think it's very good in combo decks, like Mascot Nexus decks.
So remember what S means in this new tier, right? This was in the context of Slivers, and if you're going outside of Slivers, you are. And some reasonable amount of time, you are now a format staple, right? It'd be the low end of S, right?
Yes.
But
so based on our criteria, I would say it's an S. Like it by definition will show up outside of Slivers. That doesn't mean it's possible or something. But
are you taking apart your bird deck and making this your new commander? Like that's going to be the main criteria here.
No, but I can list skeletons. This maybe actually is the thing that makes skeletons. Like there are plenty of tribes with mediocre commanders to no commanders. And I think this is better than Morph-on. Definitely. It depends on the colors you play too, right? If you're playing like green, half your utility things are on creatures, so it's actually really good. If you're playing like blue, maybe not so much, right? But like black, like Crypt Gas, things like that, like they all turn this on. So I think this is better than Morph-on in most cases.
I think Morph-on's a lot better because it doesn't trap you into running a bunch of cards that are essentially useless. If your commander's not on the battlefield, like Morph-on,
they're not useless, Tomer. Like, is Sakura Tribe Elder useless? Like,
no,
obviously don't play like tribal synergy cards and hope to glue this all together, right? But there are utility creatures like your Weathered Wayfinder, your Esper Sentinel. Like you're playing these cards just for their raw abilities, and then now they just happen to be on theme and get even better, right?
Do you
if
play
you
this
have a lot of
payoffs
payoffs to make it, but no, I'm not running this in Tribal.
Okay. You would say Dragon, probably, right?
Let's get on to some proper slivers. Sliver, Hatchery Sliver. It's a 2-mana green sliver. It's a 2/2 with Replicate 2. And then each sliver spell you cast has Replicate. The Replicate cost is equal to its mana cost. So as you cast the spell, you can pay its Replicate cost, and then for each time you pay it, you get an additional copy of that sliver. This has got to be one of the best slivers, right?
It's an easy A, yeah.
This is like the straight up like maybe best card, right? Because you know if you have mana dorks, like they're 2 drops, you have 6 mana, you pay 6 mana, you get like 3 mana dorks now, right?
Hey, wait a second. If you have the 5 mana Mascot Nexus commander and this, can you just cast Infinite Ornithopters just as you wish? Like, is the replicate 0?
Spelling cast has replicate. The cast cost is equal to its mana cost. Yes.
Yeah.
If you have
That's
a 0
actually
mana
pretty
creature
sweet.
that's a sliver.
So any 0 mana creature, you can cast infinite versions.
That's why I was
I
saying
mean, I think
Makuramel's
it's a pretty
a
good
very
card.
good
Combo commander.
Yeah.
I mean, you're never
Finding
cutting
new
this
ones.
in slivers, right? You play this
No.
every time, and it's going to be very good.
Yeah,
It
especially
also
with
works
the
kind of
Master
well
Sliver
with,
and stuff.
Yeah, and also it works very well with the Grave Mother too, because Grave Mother makes Encore tokens. So if you are going to be leaning into a like Sliver tokens style deck, then Hatchery Sliver is another one that you want to be tutoring up pretty reliably. It's just a really good mana sink. It makes all your slivers better if you have extra mana, but then you can do stuff with the tokens as well, like populate them and whatnot. So very cool.
All right. Next sliver is Capricious Sliver. 4 mana, 3/3. It's red. Slivers you control have whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn.
That's a B for me.
Not as high as the replicate one for me. I would rank it behind the replicate one. I still think I would often play it. I don't know, maybe high B, low A, somewhere in that range. I think it would often show up.
Turn.
That would make it
Because-
much better. Because slivers a
put
lot of
it
times
B.
have haste, and you're incentivized to like tap out pre-combat to make a big board and attack since you have haste, and then you're probably not going to have mana post-combat, and all those cards are just going to get exiled, and it's not like you can even say no, so you're going to exile like 10 cards, and they just go away forever, so I think it plays worse than you think because it only lasts for 1 turn, like Tomer says. But I
You
still
also have
think it's
access-
good.
Yeah, and since you are in slivers, you also have access to like Synapse Sliver, for example, which is also in the precon. It's 5 mana, but you just straight up draw a card, and then you could run stuff like Kindred Discovery and whatnot to draw cards more efficiently than this.
Dormant
I just
Sliver.
wish it wasn't until end of turn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
I wish
bad
it would
Synapse
say
Sliver.
you may cast them every turn you attacked with the sliver. I think that would be, or that damage with the sliver. That would be
So
fine.
B, average.
But just exiling cards.
Yeah.
is-
It's
Is it
average.
very good or is it? Are you excited about this? You're like,
No,
for me.
it's okay.
Okay. All right. That sounds averagey to me.
kind of low, but I
Lazotep
like it.
Sliver. 4 mana, 4/4. It's the black sliver. Slivers you control have Afflict 2. Whenever a non-token sliver you control dies, amass slivers 2. And then remember, Afflict is when a creature with Afflict becomes blocked. Defending player loses 2 life. And then
So Afflict is
I had to ask our
meaningless.
editor. So if you have like Lord of the Rings cards, so your army is an orc army, and then if you amass, you just add tokens on top of that, and now it's a sliver orc army. But
Well,
you
if you
basically
if
build
you have
one-
an amass orc army, then you will just put the counters on top of it and add the
yeah,
creature.
you
type to
always
that.
just have one army thing,
Yeah.
so, regardless of the type of it. But then for the sliver deck, you're just stacking +1/+1 counters on one army sliver.
So I'm curious, like this card reads not great, but it is technically wrath protection to some extent, right? Like if you get hit by a wrath, you're going to amass presumably like a 10/10, a 20/20 sliver most likely. Is that enough to make it a staple? Like does that
y'all
do
forget about Afflict?
enough? Afflict I think
Is
is
Afflict the
actually
better part
flavor
of this?
text. Afflict I think is one of the most meaningless about like slivers
Okay,
you're going to be
with your
unblockable,
commander,
you're going to be
triple
you're going to be
Afflict is lethal.
But the thing is,
Right.
your slivers, if you're playing your deck right, are gonna have flying. They're gonna have unblockable. Like your slivers getting blocked is not something you want to be happening if you're building a decent sliver deck. So I don't think you're like expecting to be blocked very often. Like your deck is gonna be built to avoid being blocked. So I don't think you're gonna trigger Afflict all that often.
If it was like, I agree, it's not a very good form of evasion or whatever, but it's not nothing. Like sometimes you just won't have the better evasion options, and then this is like, well, I can swing at you for lethal, but you have like 3 blockers or whatever. Well, now I swing at you for lethal and you can't avoid it. Like those type of situations. And I do like that is like, I think primarily its main appeal is wrath protection. It's not the best wrath protection, but it's there. And then having some afflict extra damage as well. Like, it does both things kind of medium, but putting them both together on a card is actually pretty decent. Like, I like it.
This is like the worst Wrath protection ever, though, because Slivers
Yeah.
is not typically a go big deck. Like, you want 5/1/1s, not 1/5/5 Sliver, right?
That's
So,
fine though, right? Like,
after
so if
you
you had
rack,
five
you get a
1/1s, you get a
1/5/5.
10/10.
It's
No.
cut-
You,
yeah.
after the Wrath, like after the Wrath, you want the 5/1/1s, right?
Oh,
If you have
right,
like
right.
if you have like somebody wraps the board and you have a 10/10, that's usually enough. It might be enough to just like chunk them down afterwards. Like, it's
I don't know.
It's just-
We like it.
It's
Very good,
B-ish.
average,
No,
cuttable.
not
I
very
would say
good.
It's like a low B, very high C. Like, I could see cutting it, but like generally speaking, I don't know. It would be my 15th Sliver or something.
To me, it's like the most average card ever. Like, it does something, right? But you can replace it with like any other reasonable card, and like you're just as good.
I imagine Phil puts this as a D because it doesn't draw cards or ramp.
Yeah, I put this. I actually. So I feel like when the artwork was created, they planned that it had Embalm or Eternalize for every sliver.
Yeah.
That'd be
And
Afflict-
then
Afflict-
it didn't
Afflict is on
work
the tab.
with the commander because that also exiles slivers, but at least they stay. And that's why I don't like this. I just
I
feel
mean-
like when it got spoiled, I thought like the artwork came out before the actual card was spoiled, and I thought like, oh, they actually chose two very mediocre keywords there in Afflict and Amass. Cool that it's two, but Embalm or Eternalize would have been way better.
If it counted tokens as well, I think this card would be pretty hot with the commander, actually.
Yeah.
Like, imagine you encore and then they sacrifice and then you
True.
make it a
Yeah.
6/6 as a bonus at the end. Like, that would be super sweet. But
Good
not
point.
counting tokens kind of
I mean, I think this is, like Tomer said, I'm in the like C to low B range, like somewhere in there. I don't think it can go above B. I would be very against it being above B.
like I said, there's so many better anthems for slivers that, like, yeah, it's on the low end.
It's also a 4-drop. Like, you
Regal
can just play
Sliver,
the
the
ring.
white one. 4 mana, 3/3. Creatures you control when this creature ETB. Slivers you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. If you're not the monarch, otherwise become the monarch.
This card's
Hey,
absurd, right?
This
Like,
card's
isn't this
so
card
good.
like super? You have 5 slivers. You play a single 1/1 sliver. They all trigger, and your team gets +5/+5. Then you play something else, and they get a like. This is just like the end of the game
Nazgul.
sliver, right? Like this is. Am I missing
Sliver
one?
enters the
They get-
battlefield, get +1/+1. Yeah, so you play Sliver, all your slivers get +1/+1 until
No.
unless you're
Sliver creatures. Oh, so it's
Yeah, but
only
it's when
every
this
sliver is
sliver's
+1/+1.
enters.
Okay.
yeah.
When this creature enters.
So
I mean, I still think
Sliver
it's
enters the
good.
battlefield is +1. I think this card's really, really good. Like, the
Not
card
as good as I
advantage-
thought. I thought it was like busted,
Yeah.
but no, it's still like
No.
that's an A, right? You would still play this in like all your sliver decks.
I can't see myself cutting this one.
And
And
plus
also,
you-
it's very good with Encore, too, because, like, you Encore, all your slivers either get +2/+2 when you get the Monarchy, or they all get +3/+3.
It's also
Okay, like-
cute with the Sliver Queen synergies because it doesn't say non-token, right? So you
Yeah.
can just like Sliver Queen to pump your team and all those infinite combos. You actually win now instead of just like making infinite colorless mana. So
Yeah.
it's an A.
Richard doesn't like it. Richard's
You don't like it?
I think it's like a B. But I'll give you guys A. It just draws a card, okay? Like that pump effect is kind of medium. Like it's not that crazy because it's just the flat. But you get to draw a card, right? Because you get the monarchy, and then you're gonna draw because no one can attack you, right? So initially, the
also-
very first time, you get the card,
You
and
just
then
get
you
it
now
back
have
every time.
monarchy.
You also just get
right?
it back. Yeah, you just play another sliver. You don't even have
Yeah.
to deal damage to the Monarchy.
Yeah.
But how much
Okay.
mana is it?
You're just always the monarch. 4.
Four.
Actually, yeah, you're just always the monarch. So,
okay.
You're
so
always
for
the
Rexian Arena on the body, and then like some very mild pump effect. Okay, I think A's. I think A is
Mild.
good.
I think giving all your things like you play 3 slivers on it. You Encore 1, so you give everything +3/+3. Like, that's solid.
Tomer's all about.
Okay, yeah.
Tomer's all
you're
about the
comboing with,
encore.
like an encore here.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Our
I mean-
commander for the precon is
Really?
an Encore commander.
Really though, like slivers are good at playing a lot of slivers. That's kind of the point. They all make mana. They all
Yeah.
do this thing. So playing a few in a turn isn't unrealistic, even outside of encoring shenanigans.
It's not like a
okay.
Cathar's Crusade, but it's very good.
Blue Sliver, Taunting Sliver, 4 mana, 3/3. Slivers you control, when this creature enters a battlefield, goad target creature and opponent controls. So it forces that creature to attack, but that can't be you. It has to be a non-you person that's being attacked. Okay, goad.
A.
C.
It gives you like
A.
pseudo
C.
evasion. Oh,
Maybe
someone likes goad, and
maybe
someone
the
doesn't
rest
like
of the
goad.
Clash members aren't aware of being attacked, but as someone who is often the arch enemy at tables, it's really nice to force people to attack each other instead. It also clears the way for future attacks too. I really like this card a lot. Repeatable goad is like so nice.
Yeah, I do like goat.
I don't feel like
It's
slivers
also fun.
Phil
interact.
understands.
I don't
Yep.
feel like slivers interact with goad in a particularly powerful manner. Like they don't have a theme that involves goad. It's not like you're trying to mess with combat. To me, this feels like a filler sliver. Like if I'm worried about getting attacked, I'm just gonna play like a Sliver Legion. All my stuff's 20/20, so come at me, bro, if you want to. Like I'm not gonna try to goad you. Like no, I'll just play like big slivers that you can't get through.
Okay, I'd rather have layers of defense, so people aren't going to collude at the table to be like, all right, we can take out his Sliver Legion, and now he's vulnerable to an Alpha Strike. Go. No, my friend. Goat says, no. You attack each other. It's great. And also, like, if there's small utility creatures, they're going to fly into blockers. That's awesome, too. If somebody just presents lethal and you know you're just going to die next turn, you can just be like, this is guaranteed. They're not attacking me next turn. It's wonderful.
Phil, where do you say? We're at an A and a C.
I do
Where are you
really
at?
like goat, actually.
C.
It is very good with Encore if you have 3 ETBs, so nobody will attack you. Why do all of them cost 4 mana? I just had to check why isn't one of them... The green 2-drop, perfect, but please give us a 3 mana sliver. They have all been 4 mana, so it will get kind of clunky on the 4-drop curve, but I do really like goat.
You're
and
an
I don't
A?
like dying. I guess I'm very low A. I probably wouldn't cut this. I think it plays better in most situations than you would expect.
Okay.
I wouldn't
Well,
knock.
We will have to split the
high
difference
beat,
because I'm with Seth. This is a hard C because like
Wow.
the attributes of your like in a vacuum, goat is not that bad, right? But the attributes of your deck make this horrendous, right? So with slivers, you are mostly unblockable. Right, so the fact that you're clearing blockers doesn't matter as much because either they're flying, trample, too big, or whatever. They even have afflict, right? And then typically, you are the biggest, beefiest, go widest thing on the board, right? So you have the most blockers, the best blockers. No one really wants to attack you unless they're murdering you outright. So the fact that you like deflect
Goat
attacks away
protects
from
you
you is
from-
like kind of right? And it's a 4
No, but-
mana 3/3. It's so
way.
expensive. If
But
it
doesn't
was
that
like a
mean
1
goat
mana
is removable?
sliver,
You just
that
keep
means-
playing slivers, and your opponents are forced to attack. They're not even not attacking you; they're forced to attack each other. They're dealing extra damage for your behalf, and they're tapping themselves down so you can continue the beatdown. I don't know. I think you guys are underselling Goat a lot.
it's okay. I mean, that's okay. That's why we put it at B, right? We we have two different opinions.
That's fair.
And we
Wild.
split the difference, right?
Yeah.
Like you like this? Like you're like this is
Yes. As someone who gets attacked a
proactive
lot,
strategy,
I
right?
like Goat.
Like you know, you're like actively not winning the game by goading people, you know?
Phil has. We were at Barcelona recently, and this card's a little bit different because it stops blocking. But Battle of the Ramparts, Phil played, I believe, 2 times. I've seen it at Barcelona, and both times it's just like all your opponents are goaded and they can't block this turn. And like the can't block this turn is very nice, but the goad was much more impactful because it was just like. Phil was a person I wanted to attack, but guess what? I have to kill each other. We have to kill. We literally just went around killing each other instead. It was wonderful.
In a control deck, that's great, but like you are
was-
the biggest
he was
creature
aggro
deck.
deck.
You
Boros
have
aggro
lifelink,
deck.
vigilance, like
He was
death
playing
touch.
Rockerick.
You have 8
Yep.
billion creatures. Like I don't know. I mean,
And this and
beatable. It's-
there's a huge difference between like I play a sliver and goad a thing, and I go the entire board and none of you can block. Like there's that double strike spell that gives everything double strike and goads it. Like that just closes out game. So I think like I'm not underselling goad. I just don't think slivers is a tribe that really benefits from goad as much as other decks would.
What if your commander has Encore and it puts 3 slivers onto the battlefield so you go through things?
I'm so torn. On one hand, I have Richard arguing for Afflict. On the other, there's Tomer arguing for Encore. I don't know what to. I don't know
These
what to
it's
cards
like
were
giving
right
my
now.
made for the
birds
face
like
commander.
unblockable. I'm like my
It's
birds
almost
already
like they were
don't
made
need
for the
that.
precon.
Yeah, but we decided
just
we
wish-
wouldn't normally play the precon commander, and we
Well,
play a better
this is
one.
why you're all wrong.
Okay. We got Titan of Litjara. Okay.
Yes.
It's a 6 mana, 6/6. As it ETBs, choose a creature type. It's a creature type illusion, so it's not a sliver. And then Titan enters as the chosen type in addition to its other types. Whenever it ETBs or attacks, you may draw a card for each other creature you control that shares a creature type with it. If you do, discard a card.
Actually, maybe S.
S. This is
So
easy.
I'm doing
This
I
is
started A
It
to
seems
sandbag
very
it,
good.
but
You
this
put
is
it-
very good in random.
This is a
decks,
good
right?
top end for any tribal deck, right? Like if you have
Yes.
if you have like with each other, right? You draw a card for each other. So let's say you have 2 other creatures that are in your tribal deck, so they're showing a creature type. You play this for 6 mana. You draw 2, discard 1. And then each time you're attacking, you're gonna be drawing more cards as you keep playing more of your creatures. And that's like on the low end. Like it's 6 mana. Yeah, it's expensive, but like this is very good, right? Like.
This is the best
Yeah.
card. Discounting commanders, like this is the best 99 card from the entire set, I would say. And it's not even especially close. Like if this is the card that will see the most play overall, discounting stuff that shows up in the command zone out of this entire set. I don't know why, if you're in
guys,
blue and
why
you're
are
a
you
go
playing
wide tribal deck,
illusions in your tribal
why would you
deck?
never?
Because
That's what you
it
guys
is-
sound like every time we
anytime.
talk about a deck. Yes.
because it counts as it. It counts
Yeah.
as it. It
It
is.
turns
It
into
is.
it.
It's illusion. When you
becomes
play
a bird.
illusion tribal now, go play Phantasmal Image, guys.
Richard, it enters the battlefield as a bird. It's literally a bird. It says so on
Yeah,
the
I'm all
text.
for this. I'm all for this. I'm all
yes.
for this S.
This card's great.
Oh, do you put this in birds, Richard?
No,
It's too
you can't
expensive.
play a
isn't it?
6 mana spell in
never
birds.
mind.
But, you know, if you
So-
had a mid-rangey deck, like, what would be a real tribal deck, like, that has
Yeah.
actual support where you would put this in? Like a
A
blue-based deck?
Merfolk,
My
maybe?
changeling deck.
Merfolk, elves, like literally any tribal deck has blue in it, right? I would play in
If
any
you go wide,
And you can make enough mana, because 6 mana is a lot.
spirits.
man, that's fine.
Spirits, yeah, it's basically every blue tribe.
Yeah.
Zombies,
We've
like if
listed,
you're
like,
in
every
Will
blue
Health,
tribe.
this is a good
Zombies.
top end.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm putting this in my
Frogs.
changing deck. This is
Okay.
the only card that goes into my changing deck.
Nice.
A changing deck doesn't count. Like, you put, like, almost anything in there, though. What? Okay.
No, because I can
Saucy
put in
one.
almost everything. I
What,
have very
what if
high.
you have no tribe synergies, okay?
No.
And you just play this. Is it
No.
good enough?
No. So this
it
is
doesn't draw-
If you only have
6,
one
6,
creature type, it loots, right? 6 mana,
It'll
6
loot.
loots, and then loots on attacks. If you have
Yeah.
2 creatures that randomly share a type, then it's draw 1.
But I mean, at 6 mana, if you don't have any tribal synergies, you could just play like Consecrated Sphinx and like draw 10 or something. Like I think there's just better options if you're not a deck that's built around one creature type. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you could Blue Sun Zenith and draw 3.
you still could like you still could
It's a 6/6,
play it.
right?
Like you still could, but I don't think I would normally.
Okay,
Yeah.
but not good enough for that.
Well, that's an S. Is that our first S?
No, we have
second
the
Israel.
backup commanders
What?
and S. Yeah.
Richard has taken over democracy.
What?
How's
We
that
literally
an S?
agreed. That was
I
either a
agreed.
C
I
or an
agreed
S.
with
Do you
that.
play in
S.
other? Do you play outside
I
this deck?
call
And
it
that's the
an
definition of
ace,
S here, right?
In what other decks? I would put it in like combo decks and that's it. For a
Yeah,
combo deck
combo.
around that.
Combo decks and Morophon decks, right?
No, man. It's fine. It's fine.
Oh wait,
we gotta
okay,
move
here
on.
go.
We gotta keep
There we go.
going.
I fixed it for you. It should
Let's
be
go.
this, right? If we could,
Yeah.
if we could align these to the right,
Should be
right?
at
These are the
C,
low.
but it's
These are
fine.
not Teferi's protections. Well, maybe the Jara is right. Rookrill is
Alright.
not
It's not Teferi's Pro, but it's the closest
but
we get from this set.
playable outside your deck.
Yes.
Okay.
Descendant's Fury, 4 mana red enchantment. Whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice one of them. If you do, reveal cards on the top of your library until you reveal a creature card that shares a creature type with the sacrificed creature. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Conveniently enough, when you sacrifice things, they go to the graveyard, and then you can encore them if you have your commander.
You can also sacrifice
So
the
let's say
on-court
token.
stuff. Wait,
Yeah. It doesn't say
which
token,
makes this
so-
pretty. I think that's the most interesting card from this deck. I hope for more of this general archetype or tribal support, and this one is actually very interesting in an interesting color as well for an effect like this. And it actually works pretty well with the commander, so I like this at A there. I don't know, it is fun.
I
tutor
think it's
is
more
usually strong.
fun than good, I would say. Like, I think it's fun, but remember, it's pretty random. If you jam this in slivers and you have 45 slivers, your odds of... You really need to get value out of having stuff in the graveyard, like encoring, I guess. But, like, outside of those very narrow scenarios, like, you could just be getting a random 1/1 as likely as you're getting the first sliver or something. So I think the randomness of it makes it more of a fun card than a good card, unless you're just really, really, really valuing the sacrifice effect. If you can have things that trigger based off that, if you can reanimate things, then the card is kind of interesting. But like tribal decks that are also sacrifice / reanimator decks, like that's kind of a narrow group of decks. So I don't think you jam this in any tribal deck. It's not going to be good enough. But if you have those extra themes on top of it, then it's probably pretty good.
I think it's also tokens. Like, you can't put it in Edgar Markov, but for zombies, like I had a Thraxamundar zombie deck. I know Wilhelt is the hot thing. It's always Dimir. But if you do go Grixis zombies like I did, zombies love making zombie tokens. I'll be more than happy to sacrifice any of my random zombie tokens to go get a real zombie.
A random zombie, yeah.
And also, I'm putting it personally in my Perforos Dragons deck. It's a sneak attack deck. And I could see the same thing with, like, I've seen Henzi Dragons as well, which is like you blitz out a creature. It's going to die anyway. You still get to draw your card when you blitz it out, and then you go get a big fatty to put onto your battlefield as well, too. So I think it is more narrow. Like, you have to find the right tribal deck for it, but, like, it's really strong in the right deck.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
So it goes outside slivers, right?
Don't do that.
You have to, right? This is the nature of this tier list, right? Like, if it goes outside slivers, doesn't it have to go into this top tier? Just
is it a format
maybe we need
staple?
2 tiers here, right? We
Format
need like staple,
staple.
but actually good. Goes outside deck but mediocre.
By our definition, it does go outside of slivers, but it feels weird to have it next to like a legit banger like Titan the Lajara, because those cards are not anywhere near the same level.
A legit
This is
stinker
why
like
one tier
Rakuramel.
list never works. Okay,
Why is Rakuramel there? I'm still...
okay. Then we're just gonna do this, right?
No, put
everything
both
is
of
a
them
C.
in A, I think.
This is in D tier. It's fine. All right. Next
Right?
one. The tier list
This is
doesn't matter.
conclusion?
It's just,
We're gonna
it's just
do
for the
this?
title.
It does matter. People
curtain
look
has
at it
been
and they're like,
lifted.
"Oh, is this a good card?" Right?
I'd put both of them in A. Both of them are very interesting, but not super powerful.
Okay.
So,
Okay. We're just changing the tier list.
Okay.
As we go. Okay. Here we go.
Whatever.
We have one more card.
One more card. Let's get it.
The last one for the ancestors. 3 mana instant. Green. Choose a creature type. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal any number of cards of the chosen type from them, and put the revealed cards in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Flashback 4. Get out of here. All right, what do you guys think? Is it good? So someone do the math.
Fillery.
Hypergeometric me. If
I
run
have
creatures-
it. I have it. Sample size 6. Number of successes is 1. Let's say we want to hit a number of successes. So we look at. Let's say we have 30 of the same creature type in the deck. That's like, I think, the standard for a tribal deck. You're seeing a sample size of 6. You're looking at the top 6 in your 99 card library. I know that you want to get a number of successes of 2. That's going to be very good for us. The possibilities of having 2 or more is 74%. No? Or am I reading it wrong?
Wait, what are you? That's 2 or less.
Oh, wait.
2 or more is the bottom one. Yeah.
59%.
So what I see is 80. So 30 creature types in the deck. You'll get 1 roughly 90% of the time, 2 roughly 60% of the time, 3 25% of the time. So it's probably a draw 2 with flashback of 4.
At instant speed.
I feel like this is fillery. Like, the more creatures you play, like if you're playing 45 creatures because you're slivers, then all of a sudden odds are in favor of like drawing 3 or more cards, and it becomes a little more exciting. So I think it depends on, like Collected Company, how many tribe members do you have? Even at its best, though, there's cards like Winding Way. There's several cards in Magic that are like, reveal the top whatever, put the creatures in your hand, any creatures you reveal. So I feel like it's fine. Like, Lead the Stampede was another one that used to see playing elf decks. Just reveal the top 5, grab all the creatures. If you're playing cards like that, I think this is a better version of it. But this is also like, depending on exactly how many tribe members you have, like, it is also potentially cuttable.
Yeah, it's kind of in this weird situation where you want to play tribe members to play this, but then you play this, which is not. If it would be
This
a
is not a
tribal
tribe
instant,
member.
Yeah, it doesn't
yeah,
have
if it would be an instant tribal shapeshifter, I guess, then I'd say that's a neat card. But I don't play just random draw spells that can miss so brutally.
I like that you don't need to have a board set up for it though. It's if you have like a 30 tribal deck, then it's going to be a reliable draw 1-2 cards, and you have flashback on it. So it's nice to rebuild. Like if you have a board wipe, like if you're board wiped and you have like this, like I don't know, Kindred Discovery on your battlefield or whatever, and no creatures, or your Kindred Discovery got blown up before you got any value in it. It's nice to have some reliable draw as well to help you rebuild. But yeah, I think generally speaking, it doesn't have synergy with the rest of the deck. Which is awkward.
And it doesn't dump into the graveyard, which is awkward. The best versions of these usually fill your graveyard with the cards that you miss on. So
yes.
So it's okay. Like it's okay. I don't. Yeah, it's yeah.
It's like
trash,
average. Or
like we're in green, the color of card draw, right? Like if you go wide, you play Toski effects. If you go tall, you play like the Garrick effects that drop, like off power, right? And then you have Great Henge, you have Guardian Project, things like that. Like you have so much card draw in green that you don't need this kind of situational divination with flashback.
Yeah.
But don't you want like a variety? Like I think there's a little bit of merit to have a variety of card draw effects too. Like yes, if you're in go wide, Tosk is going to be 10 times better than this. But like,
would you not harmonize?
I think this is
Sylvan
better
Library,
Harmonize.
Great Henge.
Yeah, I would never play Harmonize.
Like these are the ones that don't depend on a board state.
Great Henge requires power, so like if you're gonna go wide, you might not have enough power for it to be good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
I would go Sylvan Library and Harmonize.
It's a good filler card, I think.
There's also just a high cost to pay non-tribe members in your tribal decks, which is why like Titan of Lajar is so good. Like it is one of your tribe members and it's your card draw. If you're playing Slivers, you probably only have like 15 slots for wraths, removal, like all of it that isn't a tribe member. So it's hard to find room sometimes in those decks to fit a card like this, even though it's a fine card if you can find the room for it.
So I will say, like, these cards that require density of tribe. So there's a lot of them, right? There's like the cards that like, look at the top card of your library. If it shares a creature type, like do something. Yeah. They're all traps usually. Like to get them to work, you need to build such a high density of creatures, and it's simply not worth it, right? Like 30 creatures is actually pretty tough to play on tribe. Like ignoring like any additional creatures you have that for utility, right? So it's actually not that easy, and the payoff is not that great. Like the payoff here is like maybe you get 3 mana draw 3 if you're really lucky, but like it's 3 mana draw 2, 3 mana draw 1, and then you got to build this high density. So it's not good. Even if you had our favorite card here, Rookamerl, as your commander, like I still wouldn't play this, right? I would just go with the consistency or the higher power, because green has a lot of higher powered card draw, and then they also have just more straight up like just Sylvan Library, just much more consistent and gets the job done. Without having to worry that, if I cut 3 slivers to add in like 3 artifact supporting spells, but they're not slivers, does my deck get worse because I played this and I gotta fix this? You gotta keep doing that shtick.
Sylvan Library in like a tribal deck, I don't know about this. I think that card's a little bit overrated these days. That's
how is this any more on theme than a Sylvan Library? Does this add a sliver? It's just generic card draw that like is worse than Sylvan Library that requires you to have a theme, but it doesn't actually say sliver.
So it's thematic.
A picture of a sliver.
It cares about creatures. Like creatures,
but they're not slivers. Like changelings are thematic. Like I don't know like why these cards get a pass, but like changelings
because you have to say I am choosing slivers for my sliver deck, and then I found slivers.
What if I choose all card types and then just draw anything with Sylvan Library? Okay, here's our final list. Okay, wait. So we're just gonna put in B, right? Yeah.
Ooh. Sure, B's fine.
I think it's cuttable. But yeah.
Yeah, that's the first
fine.
thing.
Well, if it's cuttable,
then
it's coming down here, right?
Yep.
You can play C's in your deck, just like they're ready to get out any minute now when you find a better one. It's like the holding card, right? You're like, when I finally get that card I'm looking for, this one's going.
If there was like a draw go style green tribal deck, I'd be more interested because it's instant, but I don't think that exists. So
green, the color of
Derevi Flash Birds. I don't know, maybe.
Well, if I'm in blue, I can draw. There's like literally the bigger card draw that's like 1 for each creature, like Lajara, but 3 mana.
Distant Melody or something.
Distant Melody, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay.
All right. See.
Slivers. So we got 2 cards Actually, 3 cards can go outside the deck, and then the rest of them are big slivers, right? They're 4 manas, and then the 2 mana sliver is insane. Grave Mother, you guys be the judge of where you want to put Grave Mother, but we think it's pretty low on the list of 5-color legendary slivers. It is cheap. All the 5 color, like the Sliver Queen is insane, right? And then it does some shenanigans with Encore. So there we go, slivers. Moving on. We have everyone's favorite, Planeswalkers. Unfortunately, Krim is not here, our resident Super Friends player. So we're going to start off
I have
with,
a Chandra Super Friends deck. Does that count? Am I cool?
It's
you
close.
only have, is that a Super Friends? It's just Chandra.
It literally, yeah.
We're the
it's
friends.
Chandra Super Friends. I run every single Chandra and plus Karn and like
oh yeah, Karn. Okay, yeah,
once
follow this one.
Ugin and Jaya and what's it called? The
Okay.
one in Mirrodin that everybody forgets about.
I will give you the Planeswalker Super Friends badge. You unlock that achievement, Tomer.
I want the crown. I want the
Commander
Okay.
is Commodore Guff. So 1 white, red, blue. Oh no, I read that in the wrong order. 1 blue, red, white. So Jeskai, 4 mana. It's a Planeswalker. It's Guff. 5 starting loyalty. At the beginning of your end step, put a loyalty counter on another target Planeswalker you control. +1, create a 1/1 red wizard creature token with tap, add red. Spend this mana only to cast a Planeswalker spell. -3, you draw X cards, and Commodore Guff deals X damage to each opponent, where X is a number of Planeswalkers you control. And then Guff can be your commander. Where are we putting
B
Mr.
for
Guff.
me.
A.
Mr. Guff?
I'd put him as A.
I've never played a Planeswalker deck, and I feel like you just become the villain by default, which I am very scared of. And you can't really protect this. And this doesn't really protect.
Well, he does kind of protect himself.
Yeah, it makes
May
it.
I?
So
May
he
I
makes
pitch?
a-
May I pitch to the
A
audience?
dork to block.
Please, yeah.
May I pitch to the audience why I think the Guffster deserves his A?
Yeah,
Solid
okay.
A.
All right,
So-
what's your pitch?
As your command, so first of all, Guffster does everything you want for a Super Friends deck. He is a Planeswalker himself, so he benefits from all the Planeswalker synergies that you're going to be running in the card. He's both mana advantage when you need it because he adds tokens that tap for mana, and you're in a 3-color deck. It's only tapping for red, so it's not mana fixing, but that shouldn't be an issue in a 3-color deck. If it was 4-color, that would be an issue, but or 5-color, it would be an issue, but 3-color, I think that's fine. It's also a chump blocker or skull clampable or whatever like that too, so it can protect your commanders, just not particularly very well. And then also he also is card advantage when you need it. So if you don't need mana, he can draw you cards equal to the number of Planeswalkers you control, and he's also not proliferating. He's not putting a counter on each of your Planeswalkers, but he's putting a counter on one of them. So he's doing basically everything you want to do. But the really nice thing that he does that I really like is he's 4 mana to do all this. So it's very easy, and the deck is kind of geared towards being 2 mana. Like on the first 2 turns, you ramp. So you're going to put like an Arcane Signet, a Talisman, whatever, Guild Signet or whatever, or Sol Ring or Wayfarer's Bauble. You do 1/2 ramp, and then turn 3 you have the Guffster. You +1 him, and now on turn 4, you have a blocker for any early aggression, and then you can now ramp into like a 6 mana commander on turn 4. Which is really, really nice. So I think he works really, really well in a Super Friends deck. He is a Planeswalker himself, and he does everything. He does mana advantage, card advantage, a little bit of blocking, a little bit of loyalty, and he just naturally fits with ramp because he's going to be coming out turn 3 very consistently, and he ramps you into your turn 6s and gets the ball rolling. That's why I think he deserves an A.
So I'm a little more skeptical of this card because it almost always needs at least one and often many other Planeswalkers on the battlefield. The only ability on this card that works without another Planeswalker is make a 1/1, and that's not even that good. Like, it's a 1/1 that can kind of defend it a little bit, and it kind of makes mana, but it literally only works for casting Planeswalkers, which even in Super Friends, you're going to have a lot of cards that aren't Planeswalkers. So I feel like it's not bad. It's a decent Super Friends commander, but I'm just skeptical of the ability to keep many Planeswalkers on the battlefield in a game of Commander. Like, Guff is going to be insane if you have like 4 Planeswalkers on the battlefield, but how often can you actually get the game to that state. So I think it's a good Jeskai Super Friends commander, but Planeswalkers just aren't very good in commander. And I don't think this changes it.
Slivers is great, but when can you have more than one sliver on the deck? Therefore, the deck doesn't work. Like, if you are just playing a single Planeswalker in your deck, yes, it's hard to keep it alive. You're playing Super Friends. Yeah, your whole deck
the point
is built around keeping your Planeswalkers alive. So I think you shouldn't have a problem with that, right? Like, you may not have the 3 best Planeswalkers in your deck on the battlefield. People won't allow that, right? But can you have 3 Planeswalkers on the battlefield? I think that's definitely very doable and easy. So I disagree with Seth's assessment there. I agree with Tomer, except for his curve out plan. The curve out plan is weird. Because when you curve out, having a single blocker is not going to stop your Planeswalkers from getting trashed, right? Like, you need to set up the defense first. You got to play a bunch of blockers, some prison effects, and then you play, right? So you probably won't be curving out with your commander. And then the dorks don't do a good job of blocking because, like Seth said, they only work for Planeswalkers. So if it was a mana rock, it usually wouldn't be an issue because you would tap them to cast your Planeswalkers, right? And then you would use your other mana to cast whatever other spell you want. But in this case, you're incentivized to main phase tap out your blockers. So it's slightly awkward there. But I think anytime you cheat loyalty on Planeswalkers is absurdly strong, right? The whole point of Super Friends is to build up your Planeswalkers ultimate and win the game. So Guff lets you do that. Guff also lets you draw cards and then makes very terrible blockers, but I wouldn't even count that +1 as a real ability, right? Like, I'm really looking at the extra counter and then the draw card and shock everyone, right? And then just remember, every time Krim plays Super Friends, he gets Planeswalkers on the board. It's not like he does nothing all game, right? He gets them on the board. And then he can even lock up the game and win, but or you start chipping away at them. But Super Friends decks can keep their Planeswalkers on. Otherwise, why would you play this deck? Literally every game, you can't have a single thing on the board. No, right? You have the protection needed to do this. In a random deck, yeah, your one Planeswalker is not going to survive because you don't have the right protection for it. But Super Friends, I think, can do it no problem.
I'm skeptical of Planeswalkers legal as your commander. We've seen quite a few of them, and they just never end up very playable or popular. The most popular is Aminatou, and that's the 120th most popular commander or something. I don't know. I guess I'm just naturally skeptical of Planeswalkers as my commander because whenever I have tried them, I have had bad times because I play them, they die, then they're a million mana, and I play it, and I'm like, oh, I draw a card, and then it dies, and I'm like, why am I not just playing a real commander? So I guess I'm just skeptical of the archetype because I've just never been able to make it work myself, but maybe I'm underrating it because of that. I do think if you want to be Jeskai Super Friends, it's a really sweet commander for that, so I guess that makes it an A. I think it's good in its deck and what it's trying to do. I just don't think its deck is, compared to Slivers or something, I don't think it's a super strong archetype in Commander.
I'd put it at B because there's a better Jeskai Super Friends commander in this deck.
What's the better one?
In the deck.
In the deck.
In the deck, yeah. I think the other one is better.
Okay. So speaking, wait. Okay, so Seth is C. where do we end up with this?
I mean,
you can put it in A. I'd probably put it at B, but I'm not gonna fight about it being an A. Honestly, it's fine at A. I don't think Super Friends is that strong overall.
How do we compare it to the other Super Friends commanders, I guess?
Compared to
would you run?
oh my god, no, and never, not in a million. You would never, ever, if you're trying to be optimal and competitive, you would never even consider running this over. Atraxa puts a counter on all of your Planeswalkers every turn. This puts it on one, and it's a creature that you can protect more easily. It doesn't just die to attack. So no, it's not even the same game. One is,
not even on the same
I don't even know. Twiddly Winks, another one is,
only reason why.
Carth,
well, first of all, this has a little bit of I think Atraxa is way better, but you're in red, so you get to run all the cool red cards, and I think that's worth it. Because Joko hops. Imagine you play any creature, any Planeswalker, Joko hops, you remove all artifacts, creatures, and lanes, I believe those are the ones, and then you leave all your Planeswalkers, and then whatever Planeswalker you have that has a decent ultimate, you just win the game.
I mean, doesn't White have an infinite number of those too, though? Cataclysms, Chroma's Vengeance.
I think Cataclysm doesn't work, I don't think. Because you have to choose... You have to choose one of each permanent, and you can't choose Planeswalkers, so all your Planeswalkers have to die. You have Humility, though. Humility is nice.
All right.
No.
Well,
I don't want to play at the Super Friends table. Like a Jockalop.
Oh my God, yeah.
I think that's what-
doesn't sound so
It's
cool
cuddly.
anymore.
It's
I think that's
cuddly.
what you got to do if you wanna make them work. Yeah, you gotta.
Okay,
break
but
out the
let's go to the
meanness.
other. Phil, you said you like the other one
Okay.
more. Let's look at it.
Yes.
The backup commander is Leori Spark Touched Hunter. Blue, red, white, legendary creature, elemental cat, 3/3, flying vigilance. When it deals combat damage to a player, choose a planeswalker type. Until end of turn, whenever you activate an ability of a planeswalker of that type, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copies. So what is
Yeah,
a
I think-
planeswalker type? Like Jace?
So,
Like Chandra? Yes, exactly.
Gideon,
Chandra.
Jace,
So you
Chandra.
choose-
A name.
A character
So
name.
you choose a named character.
And
yes.
then all of those are powered up, right? So
They're
now
doubled,
You get,
yeah.
You get doubled. Perfect for
So
your
it-
Chandra list.
Yeah, so that's what I
Yes.
was gonna say. Like, are you viewing this, Phil, as just like I jam whatever random planeswalkers I want, or are you viewing this as like this is my Chandra tribal commander, my Gideon tribal? Like, choose a planeswalker and play all of one type and build around that.
I mean, it's obviously best in this, but I just like the play pattern way more of playing this on turn 3, have a 3/3 flying vigilance blocker thing that also helps your planeswalker that you can play on turn 4. And it's just way smoother on curve than saying, oh, play this on 3 after ramping with nothing on the board and plus a mediocre mana dog on the board that gets attacked down with the first attack, and the other 2 attacks are going straight to my planeswalker, and then I have to recast
No
them for
way.
6. So this
No
one
way.
seems way
think-
safer.
Honestly, like if I was just gonna play generic Super Friends, I'd probably play Guff over this. But I also love like the specific planeswalker type thing. Like I've done so many against the odds decks that are like Jace tribal, Gideon tribal. People love that. Like play all the same planeswalker together in a deck. And we've never really had a commander that supported that play pattern. So I'm hyped for this to build like all the Gideons in a deck, all the Jaces in a deck. So I really like this card a lot. But if I'm just gonna play whatever the most powerful planeswalkers are, I think I would choose Guff personally.
You got to give it to the Guffster. I don't think this. I think
Plus that beard.
This is overvalued as a blocker for your commanders. Like it's a 3/3, but like if any's
3/3 fly.
it
You
doesn't
just set
block
a
that many
1/1.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
it's
were
a chump
pitching the
blocker.
1/1s.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
okay,
it's a chump blocker
jumping.
that I don't care about. Like
Sure.
Leora, though, you're not going to chump block with your Leora because it's like a big powerhouse for your thing. You want to throw something else in front of it, like a 1/1 that you can create for free every single turn.
Yeah, you
I don't
can
know.
do that twice with the 4-mana planeswalker you cast off this. So I just like this on turn 3/4 as a blocker for the planeswalker you played. You already got the value out of it turn 4 when you play the planeswalker. I just like the play pattern a little bit more because I'm scared. I never played, as mentioned before. I might just underestimate everything here, but I feel like that's the better one. I also like copying stuff or doing stuff twice, so
Guff
that is
way
probably
better.
probably
But I think Phil's point of blocking better is a lot better. Right? So the problem with planeswalkers is not like if someone is gunning for it, it's probably gonna die. It's really like they have a mana dork they didn't use, and then you don't have a blocker, they send it at you, right? Maybe it's a one like delighted halfling would kill your 1/1, it would get eaten by the cat, right? So this thing stuffs like all those utility creatures from coming in and chipping away at your planeswalker. But obviously if they have a Galta, like everything here is moot, right? Like you need explicit removal for it, otherwise you're gonna die. So as a incidental blocker, it's pretty decent, but the one planeswalker type is an issue unless you're playing literally like Gideon tribal or Jace tribal or something. Guff works with everyone. And a lot of times you may not care about the abilities. You're just taking the ultimate. So this kind of doubles it up, but it doubles up the activate, the counterpart.
Wait, Guff only works with one planeswalker as well. It only puts one counter on one
You only
planeswalker.
put
That's
one counter.
Yeah,
almost the
good
same
one,
as saying one planeswalker type and plussing it.
Well, the ultimate just cares about, or the -3, like it
Sure.
just cares about how many planeswalkers period you have. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally
think-
wouldn't switch command. Like if I was just literally playing this deck, I wouldn't switch it. Like there's sometimes
No.
Wizards makes decks where you would actually just like switch the commanders. I think your deck gets weaker when you switch it. But yeah.
I like this
So,
a lot. Like,
Where do we
but
end up with this though? Is it actually a good card still? Average?
I think it's
Cuttable.
really good for the Jace or Gideon or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring
for
Chandra out of
Chandras.
retirement because I really didn't like having her mono red. Because the problem with Planeswalkers, and I know Seth knows this very well, is that people will default attack your Planeswalkers because why not, right? It's good value.
Free value.
So in mono red, you don't have a lot of like ghostly prison effects and stuff. The way you stop your opponents from attacking them is by blowing up the board every single turn. So I was running like all the Chandras that had wrath effects, all the mono red like earthquakes and stuff like that, and it wasn't really a fun play pattern because either I was doing my thing, or my opponents my opponents had no creatures, or my opponents had creatures and I had nothing. So having white and blue is actually really good, and then the payoff of Leori is just so much better than having my flip Chandra. So yeah, this is actually fun, and then I don't have
Y'all
to be
give me
miserable
flack for
about it.
changelings, but you're like, oh, I want to build a Chandra deck, but I need white and blue.
Yeah, well,
Isn't that
Well, you
just
get all the
blasphemous?
payoffs.
Like adding like because literally Planeswalkers are affiliated with their colors. So I'm like, what is a typically like monocolor? So like Jace. Is there like an Azorius Jace or like an Is It Jace or something?
there's a
that you can
Flipwalker
actually-
Jace. There's a lot of the Flipwalkers from Magic Origin, so each one has one of those. But
They're
it
not
was
two
good
color,
though.
though.
Like,
There's no two colored like Jace or something that makes or Gideon.
No,
No.
not that
makes this
Legal
suddenly
your
work. I guess
commander or something.
Teferi would work here, right?
Teferi has
Teferi's
Azorius.
mono blue and Azorius.
Teferi, Nahiri,
not
Narset. Like there
red,
are
so you're not
some
using
that are
red.
split
Yeah.
into various colors. Yeah.
my Chandra deck works absolutely fine. It's just a miserable experience for my opponents. That's the only thing. I'm looking out for them. All right.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay. Speaking of Chandra, let's go with the let's go with this Chandra here. Chandra
Wait.
Legacy of Fire, 5 mana. It's red, obviously. 3 loyalty. At the beginning of your end step, Chandra deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of planeswalkers you control. +1. Add red for each planeswalker you control. 0. Remove a loyalty counter for from each of any number of permanents you control. Exile that many cards from the top of your library. You may play them this turn.
S plus.
Wait, you'd play this
That's plus,
outside of Super Friends?
You would play this as a
Oh
generic.
no, never mind. I'm just really excited about Chandra.
Oh, okay.
It's
I
so
mean-
good. It's so good at Planeswalkers. Oh my god.
It's a really good, like, in your Chandra deck, or any, just a generic Super Friend deck, like, it gives you some damage. The ritual mode is going to make it, like, yes, it's 5 mana, but you can hopefully gain back, you can definitely gain back 1 of that mana right away. And if you have multiple Planeswalkers, you maybe gain back its entire mana cost right away, and it generates a bunch of card advantage. I think this is one of the best, like, Super Friends Planeswalkers, right? Like, if you're playing a deck full of Planeswalkers, this is a Planeswalker that's literally designed to be good in that deck. So I don't think you can BS, because you're not going to jam this in just, like, a generic red deck, because it really needs a bunch of Planeswalkers. But in Super Friends, I think this is one of the Planeswalkers you want to draw most, probably.
It also adds a finisher to the deck, and let me tell you, the worst thing about a Super Friends deck that has no finisher is the fact that you have to be there for 3 hours, and this one actually puts a clock on it. Oh, more of
Also,
those, please.
yeah.
Ultimate and end the game. What?
Well,
Yeah, but they're so
they literally have
slow.
an in-clock finisher, right?
And they all they all do their own thing, you know? Like, everybody's punching each other in the face, life totals are going down. I feel like you should be attacking life totals to just, like, end the game more consistently. So if people are, like, 10 or something, then Chandra, you put down Chandra and you protect it for, like, 2 turns and they're dead. Like, that's good.
And what are we talking about in Commander? What is the most important things in Commander? Making mana, drawing cards. Making mana, drawing cards. Chandra does both of those. Its 2 abilities are literally make mana, draw cards. Like, how can you not like that in a Super Friends deck?
I don't think we
It's
have
not
any
draw cards,
agreements
though,
here.
right? It's exile from the top. And the cost
Oh,
of that
now
is your
we're
commander's
quibbling.
loyalty. No, but it matters, right? Because if you exile, like, 5 loyalty counters to look at 5 and just cast 1, like, 1 card off the top, was that worth it? Right? Like, because you're not drawing them and putting them in hand, right? They're gone afterwards. So if
Yeah,
you're only
no,
getting
that's
1
true.
card worth of value out, and you just, like, took 5 loyalty counters off your planeswalkers, that's kind of rough, right? So
Well,
it's
I
not
think
as
you just
nice as
activate this
drawing
for like
cards.
1 or 2. Like, I think
Yeah,
you
I
activate
think-
this for 1 or
yeah.
2, and that's basically it. Like, you're happy with that. Like, it should be
So
fine.
it like changes your other planeswalkers into like a tick down, right? Like a -1 draw card, or do
Yeah.
the Chandra exile thing, right?
yeah.
Basically, yeah.
I think it's okay. It's 5 mana. It's really expensive, and it
I
starts
love her.
damaging people. Like, it's like this weird incremental thing. This like the reason I don't play +1/+1 pump effects. Like, it starts threatening people when you may not be ready to threaten people. Like you kind of like commander play pattern is like you do stuff and then you win the game in one turn, right? It's typically not incrementally deal damage and annoy everyone because you're not going to survive, right? Because the person at low life is going to be like, hey, I don't want you to untap and deal more damage to me, so I'm going to start killing you. So I kind of like my cards to kind of do a bursty thing, but Super Friends inherently is not that.
Yeah,
unless
Super
you're
Friends is
Yeah.
grindy.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like grind you, but do you have enough damage? I think in Chandra decks, you probably have enough damage to actually grind people with damage like this. Like if you stack up the Chandra emblems and all that, it would be pretty good.
But this
So-
also pairs well with Guff that deals also damage. And then there's other planeswalkers. Like my favorite one is like Sarkhan the Masterless that turns all your planeswalkers into dragons, 4/4 dragons of flying, and you smash them on that turn. Like this deck actually has lots of ways to attack the life totals as opposed to just winning with big ultimates. So it does all add up.
So where do we land on Chandra?
I'd put it at
One of the
number.
best planeswalkers in your deck?
It's a 5-drop.
High,
And then
But aren't all
High-
planeswalkers this expensive? Like,
high B,
Three
high B,
fairies.
low A. I would say probably like I think it's very good in a Super Friends deck.
The
But-
Guffster ramps her out too. Same.
the,
Guster ramps everything.
High B, high B, high B, low A,
Phil,
whatever that
where are you?
amounts to.
I'm good with that. I just wanted to say how much I'm a big fan of Chandra. So
Yeah, and it's perfect
Phil,
for your Chandra deck.
where are you
for
at?
sure.
if you want an A, great. If you want a B, great.
All right, no one asked you, Tober. We know you like it at A.
Oh,
Phil.
I thought you
oh
asked
yeah,
us.
I'm at B, but I
So
don't play
B.
Planeswalker.
So we got B, we got A's. I give it an A too. I think we're actually on consensus here at A.
I love her. Well, I mean, Phil said B just now, so
Yeah, but he's like high.
I
He's close enough.
don't care.
high B. Okay, sure.
We got Mr. Jace. Is this Jace?
No,
I'm trying to look at this like tiny art here.
Oh,
Which one are you
Vranos?
looking
Oh
at?
no, it's
It's
not.
got to be
Vranos.
Vranos, yeah.
Oh no,
Vranos, yeah.
it's Vranos, Masked Inquisitor. My bad, Jace.
He's from
5
Duel of
mana,
the
so
Planeswalkers,
3
though.
blue, 5 loyalty. +1, up to 2 target planeswalkers you control phase out at the beginning of the next end step. -2 for each opponent. Return up to 1 target non-land permanent that player controls to its owner's hand. -7, target artifact you control becomes a 9/9 construct. Artifact creature with vigilance, indestructible, and this creature can't be blocked.
that's good.
Better
This
than
is like-
Chandra.
A.
Yeah.
This is like 2023 protection.
That plus
Yeah,
one
Phase
is
out,
like
but you can't phase
yeah.
out yourself. You have to phase out 2 others. So Vronos gets is still the chopping block.
Yeah, but the negative is like what's really so insane.
Yeah.
Like if you really want to be protecting your planeswalkers, you bounce all the creatures that could potentially be attacking you.
So you
for
bounce
a turn.
1 from each opponent. So you
From
get
each
to bounce
opponent,
3
yes.
things. Yeah.
Yes.
I
Or
actually-
you phase out your most important. Like if you have an ultimate coming up and you're like, I need this ultimate to win me the game, you phase out that planeswalker, and then you're like
Yep.
guaranteed to activate it basically.
I mean, we've seen Kaido Suzuki be very good just because it phases itself out the turn after it comes into play. That +1 to me like really makes this. I think the -2 is actually like kind of medium. The -7, if I got to 7 loyalty, I don't think I would choose to activate it. I think I would rather keep using the +1 in -2. But that +1 is just so insane in a Planeswalker deck. For the reason Tomer said, you can get something up to ultimate and guarantee that it's going to come back the next turn and be able to ultimate. So I think that's like so good for Super Friends, like so incredible.
You don't like
You
the
make it
ultimate?
This is your
Make
common
a-
dog.
make a
Nine,
9/9?
indestructible vigilance.
Yeah.
Can't be, it hits somebody for 9 each turn. It can't
Who
die
cares?
almost because it's
So
indestructible.
slow. That
Yeah.
is
I'm
trying to-
But
slowest
it blocks
ultimate
your
win I've ever
commanders.
seen.
It blocks. It's a vigilance. If vigilance can't be blocked, indestructible, 9 damage each turn.
I
Yeah.
would rather just ultimate my Planeswalkers by protecting them with the +1 rather than cashing
Yeah.
in my Vranos to like make a 9/9, I think.
That's literally his ultimate, and it's pretty mediocre.
But
right?
I just like winning the game. I won't. If
That
you're-
doesn't win
I-
the game at all, right?
Guff
It's a
deals damage,
9/9,
Chandra
and
deals
there
damage,
is
Sark-
120 life on the board for you to get through with that 9/9. Like that
But
is.
this Planeswalker deck deals damage. That's the point of the deck.
It still gets got by exile-based removal too.
Okay, Rhodos is a very strong card, but that ultimate is very weak compared to commander, ultimates for planeswalkers, right? Most ultimates will win you the game or get you like really close to winning the game. This is a 9/9, right? So the real ability is that first ability, and that real ability is that first ability with your commander Guff, right? Because this is at the end of your at the beginning of the next end step phase out, right? So you can stack the Guff, you can stack this. It's basically a doubling season combo kill, right? You're getting
the counter.
You're getting 3 loyalty guaranteed on the commander this turn, right? Because you get 2 this turn, and then you get to untap and do 1 more. So that alone is worth everything. And like I would see that ultimate is like a meme, right? At 9 loyalty, I would be +1ing still.
I'm also loyalty, on that plan.
Right?
I think the other abilities are great too, but I don't know. I think you guys are underselling having a 9/9 that can vigilance indestructible can't be blocked. That seems good.
Well, I mean, it is decent, right? But compared to other planeswalkers where you have to go through the effort of protecting your planeswalker, plussing multiple times, and then ultimating, they actually win the game. This one, like, creates a serviceable creature. And then, like if you would you be like doubling season play Vranos? Like, no, right? That's not the line I'm looking for, right? Like, it's okay, it does things, right? But like, if I was going to do that, there are many other things I would be playing to do that instant ultimate, right?
All right.
But we're at
still an A.
Best card in the deck.
It's an A. Best card so far. Best card we've talked about so far. Yes. If you're in blue and you're in Super Friends, like that +1 is just one of the best abilities we've seen for a Commander Super Friends deck ever, I think.
Sure.
All right. Yeah. Next up, Teo. 3 mana, 3 loyalty, white planeswalker. He's the geometric tactician. When he enters the battlefield, create a 0/4 wall creature token with defender and flying. +1, you and target opponent each draw a card. -2, choose left or right. Until your next turn, each player may attack only the nearest opponent to the last chosen direction, and planeswalker is controlled by that opponent. So that's basically choose left, right. Everyone attacks left or right, right?
I would never plus this.
Isn't this like a secret rendezvous on a planeswalker that you could play in any deck? Like 3 mana, you get a 0/4 blocker. No one's gonna kill this because they're gonna hope that you choose them to be the person to draw a card, and then you get a Phyrexian Arena and you give it to Krim, who's mana screwed or whatever. Give him the extra card. Like, we've seen Secret Rendezvous do some hard work. Like, could you play this outside of Super Friends as just like a value engine card draw piece?
I would say this is like the closest. This is the closest Super Friend that you could run. I agree with Seth wholeheartedly. And Richard, this is literally Secret Rendezvous. What are you doing?
Okay, no, you guys are misunderstanding what Secret Rendezvous does, right? It's a 3 mana draw 3, which is the best rate in Magic. And then the downside is it does the Secret Rendezvous part. This would be a 3 mana draw 1, and then you're giving a card to an opponent, right? Like, that is not worth the effort you need to go through to get this done. So, is this playable? I don't know, but it's not because of that +1, right? It's got to be because of the -2. Like, you control combat, and you're doing things.
The -2.
Would you play Phyrexian Arena that gave you an opponent a card each turn? Would you play that card?
Well, so the purpose of Teo is this is not just a planeswalker. This is not a planeswalker payoff. This is a planeswalker support your other planeswalkers card.
Yes.
It's 3 mana, so it's very cheap. It comes with a 0/4 flyer, so it actually is a better blocker than Leori, for example, and it's expendable. The +1 ability is like, hey, will you agree not to attack my planeswalkers this turn? And if they say no, you go tell the other person, hey. And then that's the point of that. But the -2 is Pramicon for a turn. And Pramicon's very good as a Super Friends just support card, because if somebody has a very scary board state that can blow up all your creatures and somebody doesn't, you're just like, all right, we're going to attack in the direction where the person with the scary board state cannot attack me for a turn. So that kind of helps set up, if you're about to ultimate or whatever like that. You use that as a way to be like, all right, you literally cannot attack me this turn. And it also has a blocker. It comes with a blocker. And it's just 3 mana. It comes down early and everything. It's very good.
I like that
it's better 3 mana blocking thing, right? And it's also not that annoying, so people are not gonna gun for it to kill it too. There's a world where people are hit Teo or draw Karvatoski. Everyone's draw Karvatoski. They're not gonna bother hitting your Teo, right?
And it comes with a blocker at the very least too.
Yeah.
It makes it a little bit more annoying to hit him. And
So
you can
I'm
bribe
on board
them.
with like very good. It's exceptionally I think in this deck. When I play it outside of Super Friends, I don't know how much do you value
Is
that
it-
weird direction.
It-
It's clearly not
I-
for that plus one.
Oh,
So I like what-
would you put it in every Super Friends deck? I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
Yes,
worth it in Super
right?
Friends. And I think out of everything we've seen, like, so far everything is pretty Super Friends exclusive. Maybe it's not actually good enough, but this has got to be the closest to having a chance outside of Super Friends, right? Just like a weird Phyrexian Arena, like Secret Rendezvous thing.
No.
Like,
I think I'd rather take Vrados and start bouncing 3 things a turn rather than playing this tail with,
all right.
with no synergies whatsoever.
But the wall,
So-
you can populate the wall. They'll never get through your defenses. Okay.
So I would have put this at C if it wasn't for 2 facts. So it is cheap and it creates a blocker, which in a Super Friends decks maybe it's already a B. I do like what Thomas said, that it is highly political. Like, it would be a Phyrexian Arena where you choose an opponent that draws, which is completely unplayable. Sorry, for 3 mana. No. It is cool if you bribe people to not attack you.
It's not a good bribe, right? Like
Not too good, but it is. It's just 3
if
mana.
you're
So I would
winning,
pl-
like you're
I
not
guess I
gonna
would
bait
play.
it, and then if it's like a small attack, like you don't actually care that much. Like it's not
I
that bad.
feel that
early
right?
drop,
So
though.
it's I would just say it's literally a fog, in the sense that you choose a direction where you're not gonna get
Yeah.
hurt, right? Because you have a blocker and then you fog, right? And you just change. Like imagine you play Scary Planeswalker, you play this, you play Vronos, you play Guff. Like you're getting a free ultimate, right? You have enough protection to just basically turbo fog your way through to your ultimate. So it's just another piece to keep everything alive, and just ignore that. That plus one is like add some loyalty. And sure, there's cases where you'll make it do some work, but like it's the wall and the fog, right? Not the like if it didn't have that second ability, I would not play this.
Yeah.
It was just like make a wall, secret rendezvous, and then some kind of like game winning ultimate. I think that's not good enough. But
I mean, those are definitely
that's like a fog.
That's I think those are the concrete, like, no politics. I just have concrete way of stopping attacks. The plus one though, I will say, like, Barcelona, one of the games in LobbyCon I played with Krim, he had Party Jace, the 3-mana Jace. Everybody draws a card, or you just draw a card by yourself. And he just said, I'm playing Party Jace. I'm going to tick up if everybody agrees not to attack my Planeswalkers for a turn. And for the first 2 turns, we said yes. And then when I said no, he was like, all right, I'm going to draw my cards myself. And by the way, damnation. So like, like the fact that you have both, they could be like, oh, I can tick up and then I don't have to tick down. But if people say, no, I'm going to attack your stuff, then you're like, okay, now I tick down.
Next card is this white one.
Oh, hell yeah.
Onake
Yeah, it's-
Oathkeeper. 1 in a white, 2 mana, 0/4. Looking very Wally already. Creatures can't attack planeswalkers you control unless their controller pays 1 for each creature you control, or for each creature they control that's attacking a planeswalker you control. And then 6 mana, exile it from your graveyard, return target planeswalker from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Insane.
It's fine.
That's
No.
literally what you want from an early drop for Super Friends, right? You want protection,
right?
I mean, the only downside is it doesn't protect you. So there will be a time when people are just like, well, I guess I just go at your face then. Like, player removal will get rid of all these planeswalkers. But in the early game, I think it's good protection. And then eventually you're going to wrath the board, and this can get a planeswalker back later. So I can't see not playing it in a Super Friends deck. But keep in mind, it doesn't protect your life total. So just be aware of that fact that opponents can still go at you if they want to.
It's also a 0/4 by itself. So it can also, like, if you play turn 2... like, it could block most of the small little thingies, but also nobody's going to be paying the 1 early on anyway. So, and then you cash it in for a real planeswalker at the end. Like, that's great.
Yeah, 6 mana to reanimate a planeswalker is not that bad.
Ability. This card would be cracked without it.
Real,
But
I would.
don't even
Ooh,
know why. You just randomly. get
really? I would never play this card without the second ability. I think you really need that card advantage
this.
built
Seth,
in.
you were
Like,
just literally complaining about how you can't keep your planeswalkers alive, and then you have like the perfect card to keep your planeswalkers alive, and you're like, I'm not gonna play it. It doesn't draw cards.
It's like a pay one ghostly prison that doesn't protect your face and dies to remove. Like, I don't know. Like, the protection is something, but I don't know. I don't think this guarantees my planeswalkers live, but it helps my planeswalkers live, and then it really helps by reanimating one once they die.
Ghostly Prison doesn't protect your planeswalkers, and this is the first time of an effect like this says planeswalker, and this is actually the reason. The fact that cards like this didn't exist is why I would never think about playing a planeswalker deck. If there was more like this, and I can't spend the first 3 turns making sure I keep these things, I would play a planeswalker deck. So this is actually the best card for the archetype.
We've looked at like
I've
every
seen,
card in this deck, and it is those cards involve keeping your planeswalkers alive or accelerating their abilities, either giving you 2 abilities, adding extra loyalty, or preventing your opponents from killing your planeswalkers. Not a hard lock, right? There's no like literally you can't attack, right? But like enough tax and annoyance that is actually an obstacle. In the same way, Ghostly Prison doesn't prevent you from dying. It gives enough of a roadblock to disincentivize value attacks. And if they want to actually kill you, they gotta pay a price. But yeah, this is one of the best cards in the deck. I think every Super Friends deck would play this.
I mean, like Archon's Absolution, Baird. There's a bunch of creatures that are like, you can't attack me or my planeswalkers unless you pay 1.
Yeah,
those aren't like staples or anything, right? They're like okay, but
no, but that's 4 mana is the planeswalker slot in the mana curve, but 2 mana is something. Unless you play Ren and 6, you don't do anything. I guess a mana rock, but I'd way rather play this and then follow it up with a 3 mana planeswalker, bounce something, draw a card, and then 4 mana. Yeah, that seems just like the best card for the archetype.
It's like Wall of Omens, right? Staple. It's like a 0/4 blocker, and then except that card you draw goes onto the battlefield and is like Ghostly Prison for your planeswalkers, right?
I also like that the activate ability is instant. So like you could wait until your end step, reanimate something really big, and then
But then you can't activate it, right? Oh, wait till your opponent's end step. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And then you can have a bigger turn.
That literally makes no difference, though.
No, but you can have a bigger
because
turn.
during your turn you get it, you activate it. But I guess you could do Teferi, and then you can get some activations in.
I was thinking more like you could have this big surprise planeswalker, and then you play it. You have all your mana to do something huge, You could also do it on your main phase and then tick up immediately too.
I mean, you save the mana. Yeah. Okay. Guff rewrites history. 2 in a red. Instant. For each player, choose target non-enchantment, non-land permanent that player controls. Those permanents owners shuffle them into the libraries. Each player who controlled one of those permanents exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card, puts the rest on the bottom of the library in a random order. Each player may cast the non-land card they exiled without paying its mana cost.
That's a D for me.
Chaos Warp?
No. Well, it's Chaos Warp, except it doesn't do the good things Chaos Warp does. You can't whiff on it. You have to blow up your own stuff. You have to target everyone. It's more of a chaos card, I think. Yeah, and they're always going to hit. There's no, it's something I can't play like Chaos Warp. So I actually think this card is pretty, like, it'd be fun in Chaos, or maybe there's some, like, polymorph style combo you can build into your deck, but just for playing it as value, I would not play this card as like value removal. I think it's way too risky.
Well,
and I like Chaos Warp.
I think this is a build around. Like if I'm a token deck, I think this card is pretty solid. Like imagine you cash in a treasure token or like a clue token or whatever, and you're gonna get a sweet permanent, and you're still gonna remove the best thing from your opponent's stuff. Like they've still, like you're trading in their best thing for something that isn't their best thing. It's kind of like the same idea of Tibble Trickery, right? Like Tibble Trickery, they're always going to get something, but it's still a very good card because they're going to counter the best thing. So
that's not true because you have to choose a player. So if a player literally has nothing, right? Yeah. Like they literally have one token, you have to choose it, and they're getting a card off. You can't like skip that player, right?
They're gonna have something, and also they can hit like a counter.
But then it's not their best thing.
Garbage. Yeah.
No, you can choose their best thing, right? But like if they don't have the best thing, you're basically doing the thing for them that you're doing for you, right? You're replacing a token with something off the top, right? So,
but you just wouldn't cast it in that situation.
Yeah, but what if you want to do it for your thing? Or like, what if there's one player with the thing you want to remove, but 2 other players with like dirtily things? Like, there's no like for each player choose up to or anything, right? You have to choose everyone at once. That's the
timing could be awkward.
the inflexible part of this.
And it also
It's not
like
replacing Chaos Warp, that's for sure.
I mean,
and it
it's not
also
Chaos
can
Warp
spin
for
into a
starters.
mana rock or anything like that as well. Like if you build around it and blow up your clue, like there's a lot of mana rocks in your deck probably, so you might not be hitting your best thing either. You can't really control it. It's not like hit a card of the same type or something like some other cards. So I mean, it could be fun to play just as a chaos card, but I don't think it's super strong.
It's also not
I'd
enchantment.
put it at
So
B.
the point of Chaos Warp is you can like remove enchantments. Like you're right,
Yeah.
you can't deal with this stuff normally. For some reason, this limits you, so you can't choose enchantments.
Because they don't like Chaos Warp. They said it was a color break. So they're avoiding it in the future. That was the reason.
Yeah,
And they're
only
not hitting
only
lands
black
because
gets to
Only
blow
green.
ups, and only black gets to blow up enchantments these days. Because anyone else is a color
Okay,
vibe.
where
What a
do we
world.
end with on this? Seth, where is this?
I mean, I'm cutting this unless I have some like specific combo that I can like make this work with. I'm cutting it from the precon for sure, or a Super Friends deck or whatever.
Phil?
I'd put it at D. Like I would put a basic land into my deck rather than this. I just the it's so bad. Can you imagine? The floor is already like, I don't know if you ever resolved the new Etali, but if you guarantee a spell from the top, it can go pretty gnarly with
Yeah, it
Etali.
can go
You get
wrong.
hits. No way I ever cast this card outside of Chaos Week. 0 chance, and I would play basic land over this. Nah,
I'm at a solid
It is
C. I
fun
think if I'm in a
for
deck
your
that's tokens, I'm
Wait, a
going
solid
to
C?
consider it. Yeah, because like
Okay.
I think more times I'm just gonna wait until each opponent has something that is good that they're probably going to randomly spin into something worse, and then I'm gonna cast it, and I'm gonna turn my token into something better than a token, and
so
everybody
did you
else is
say
gonna be
that's-
downgraded.
That's so
I heard
funny to
C.
me because Tomer is the one that will not play Chaos Warp because
Yeah,
he's
this
so
is
afraid
ridiculous.
that Chaos
I
Warp
literally-
will randomly
He
hit
doesn't like
something even
Chaos
though it
Warp.
whiffs half the time. But this one
Yeah,
that
but-
guarantees it won't whiff is
but
better.
On targeted removal week, did I rate Chaos Warp as a D? No, I put it as an S. It was one of the best options. I just said I won't run it.
But you
But you
would run this.
This doesn't
I
make any
actually-
sense.
Yes,
you shouldn't
because-
run this either, even if you like it, right?
It's multiplayer.
Please run this
It also
against
benefits
me.
your it also benefits yourself, and also I do run Chaos Warp now. I stopped. I wasn't running it, and now I do because it's funny.
Maybe you can politic
is
your way into it and be like, if you hit something good, will you promise not to cast this? I really want to upgrade my clue.
Sure. Sure.
Oh, this is like the most conditional. Like when you play Chaos Warp, it's already conditional in the sense that if there's nothing to remove, it's a dead card in your hand, right? But now, if there is something to remove,
Not like all removal.
yes. I mean, they're all conditional, right? Yes, right? But now this is like, there's only one thing to remove, and then I risk playing like the the chaos game with 2 other people. I gotta wait for them to have a higher value target. Essentially, the card on the battlefield, on average, needs to be more powerful than a card in their deck for you to win out on this exchange, right? So this is like super conditional. Like if it was up to, like for each
Yes.
player choose up to 1, this would be
Yep.
infinitely better, like so much better. But
Oh,
this is like, let's spin the wheel for everyone and hope we don't die in this process, right? Like, so it's a pure chaos card rather than a
If it
chaos warp,
was
which is
That's
just
funny.
removal.
if it was up to, it would probably be at least a B for me and maybe an A.
Yeah.
Like then I think it would actually be really good if it was up to. But since you have to choose everyone, I'm a C.
Or if it was
I'm a
way
C
less
too.
mana. Like if it was 1 mana and I can just play token into this while nobody else has permanence, I guess.
Maybe.
Or free, because you kind of spend mana and
Free?
then everybody else gets something for free.
If it was free.
Yeah, I mean the card is just
Sure.
insane trash. I'm sorry.
If it
Please
actually
play this
generated
against me and
mana.
prove me wrong.
I mean, free is not enough, right? Free is a card in your hand, right? So,
It's still a card in your hand, and the
You don't play Ornithopter, it's
Portal
free.
of Phyrexia onto the battlefield somehow.
Sure.
Okay, Gatewatch Beacon, 3 mana white artifact. It ETBs with 3 loyalty counters on it. Tap it to add white. Whenever a Planeswalker enters the battlefield under your control, if Gatewatch Beacon has loyalty counters on it, you may move a loyalty counter from Gatewatch Beacon onto that Planeswalker.
Nice.
So we've seen more and more of these 3 mana rocks that make 1 color of mana but have an additional upside. I don't think this is the most powerful one that we've seen so far, but in a Super Friends deck, I'd probably still play it. I think for me, it's probably a high B, low A for Super Friends. I could see some Super Friends decks if I'm super high powered and I have Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Mana Vault. Like, this might actually just be too slow for the most optimal high-powered Super Friends decks, but the power level we play in Commander Clash, like that speed, I think I would usually have this as a Mana Rock in my deck, because the extra loyalty is a nice little bonus ability, especially with stuff like the Chandra we saw that wants to remove loyalty. This is a way you can kind of like get around the fact that you have to remove loyalty from your Planeswalkers for certain abilities, so I like it in our power level.
Yeah,
I like it too.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
I like any reason to play a 3-mana rock because they have become very interesting with the latest design, like Crowded Crypt and stuff. And this one is the perfect one for Planeswalker deck, especially if you have Proliferate. You can Proliferate on this and keep the counters going. So it's just perfect B for me for Planeswalkers. Not too strong, obviously, in the context of a mana rock, but I like the design, and I would probably not cut it. And extra loyalty counters get very broken very quickly on Planeswalkers.
So I like it a lot too, but I will downgrade it a little bit with this particular commander, because for Commodore Gruff, I know you guys disagree, but for me, my game plan for the Guffster would be turn 1 or 2, ramp, turn 3 Guffster, and make a token or whatever. If there's a lot of creatures on board and that doesn't work, then I'll alter my strategy. But I think in most situations, if everybody's like taking their second turn to ramp, I can just carefully, like, securely do that. And this does not enable that, which is a little bit annoying. So if my commander is 4 mana, then I value 3 mana rocks worse. Like, if this was a 5 mana commander or a 6 mana commander, then I would value this much higher, and that's the average. But in this particular situation, if the commander is like 2, 3, or 4 mana, I value 3 mana rocks lower, if that makes sense. I also like this with certain Planeswalkers that can immediately ultimate the turn they come onto the battlefield if they have one more loyalty counter. The one that popped to mind immediately was Nissa Vital Force. It starts with 5 loyalty, but its ultimate is 6, and if you cash it in immediately, it has an emblem. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card, and that card does see play in, like, Atraxa, for example. So if you're running Planeswalkers to do that sort of stuff, I think it gets a lot better. But in this particular deck, if you have a 4 mana commander, I think it's a little bit lower. That's all. But I still put it as a B. Like, I think it's on the cutting floor. It would be like a low B in this deck, or C even. But in general, I think it's a solid B.
Yeah, I think it's okay. It's like fine. It's a 3 mana rock, which is kind of slow, but like, you just don't want to play 3 mana rocks versus the off curveness that Tomer's saying. Like, I don't think you ever curve out like this, especially Super Friends. Like, this is the way you get killed first easily, right? You spend all your mana, you make a 1/1, and then people just like dump on you with random stuff. Like, you really want to be like ramping and setting up all the defense, and then you start playing your commander, right? So you got to play the 2-drop 0/4, you got to play Teo, you got to do some ramping, and then you can start dumping these things, right? And then you play this 3 mana rock, and it's just like weird proliferate, like, you know, like pre-proliferate. It's serviceable, right? But the 3 mana ramp is just so slow, though. I don't know, like this or like Worn Power Stone, even in Super Friends. I'm like, maybe I just play Worn Power Stone just to like power out the mana there so I can actually get to the things.
Wait, weren't you guys going all gangbusters about Guff, like adding 1 loyalty counter to a Planeswalker with its static ability? Isn't this the same thing on a 3 mana rock? Like,
yeah, but you don't need to play a 3 mana rock, right?
Yeah.
Like let's say Guff lost like an ability and then was a 2-drop. Would you play Guff? Like, doesn't Guff get a lot better, right? So what if I just lose this proliferate thing and just become, you know, Arcane Signet? Did it get better?
I don't know.
Right?
I think in Super Friends, adding loyalty is pretty powerful. So I think I'm higher on that than maybe everyone else is. But obviously, you're not going to play it outside of Super Friends, and not in every Super Friends deck, which I think, guess it's a B then, probably by our definitions.
It's somewhere in the B range. It's not like super exciting, but it's not like bad.
Yeah.
I also think Super Friends are in a unique case where you actually do want to ramp them out early because they are like the opposite of the Richard style because they're not explosive. Like they're by definition, you need to be the more turns are on the battlefield, the better they become because they accrue more value. And also you have to kind of get them out before your opponents have like scary armies because then you have to find a board wipe instead. So I do think there's like merit to just like turn 3, knock out a Planeswalker or something. Because you're probably ahead of like creatures that can attack, and then turn 4 you can put your protection or whatever. But that's how I mean, view it.
If the board is empty, you can definitely try to curve out and then go see prison after. But that's like really rough. Like if everyone's doing greedy things, then you can do greedy things too.
If everybody turns 2 signets or something, then you're fine.
Well, no, because even if you guff and everyone just plays 1 creature each, you can't defend guff afterwards. It's like very difficult, right? Like it's easier to just wait for you to set up your defenses and then accrue value. Like, are you really gonna 4, 5, 6 win the game? If you can, then sure, right? But if you can't, then you have a target on your back, and like all the stupid 1/1s and 2/2s people are making are like coming for your planeswalkers.
Yeah, your Super Friends, like you're always having a target on your back. That's the nature of the archetype.
All right. Jaya's Phoenix, 5 mana, 3/3, flying haste. Whenever Jaya's Phoenix deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, copy the next loyalty ability. You may activate this, you activate this turn. When you activate it, you may choose new targets for the copy. Whenever you cast a Planeswalker spell, you may return Jaya's Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Insane.
So good.
Yeah.
Really?
So good.
It's 5 mana though.
I was
you might want to faithless
looting
looting it.
I was thinking I would kind of cut this one, honestly.
What?
What?
Well, if you think about it, like
over Planeswalkers.
Well, it doubles the value of a planeswalker.
Yes.
And it only copies a loyalty ability, which sometimes is like draw a card or something. Like it's not that it's bad, but like a single loyalty ability isn't like that ridiculous most of the time unless you're ultimating, right?
You would copy a down tick probably, right? Like
but you could also if it's not if there's no good active, like if you don't really care as much to copy an ability, you just have it as a blocker, it's gonna die, and then for 0 mana, you just cast another Planeswalker spell, which is what Super Friends is all about, and then for free you get to put it directly onto the battlefield again and to do its thing again.
5 mana is a lot, though.
Yes.
That's like the Fairy Hero Dominaria. Some of the strongest planeswalkers are 5 mana. Are we really playing 5 mana 3/3s?
But then it reanimates itself for 0.
Yeah, the upfront cost for 5 is pretty rough. So I would maybe play like something like Frantic
trying to get it in the graveyard
or
Faithless Looting or whatever. Yeah.
Like once if you can discard it, my god, it is just free value. And hey, I'm biased. Copying abilities, that gets me. That sounds pretty good.
There are some Chandras that are like discard your hand and wheel and stuff. I say A.
I'd put it at A.
It's one of the strongest in your deck.
Yeah. Over.
I guess I'll come to B.
Yeah.
I can come up to B. My initial instinct was it's too expensive and I would cut it, but they've made some good points. I'll come up to B, where it's like, okay, average filler. Like, I'm not going to cut it, but I don't know if I'm not nearly as excited as they are about it.
Yeah,
maybe I'm
I
too
think it's
optimistic.
somewhere between B and C. Like, it does things, but it's also very expensive. And it's eating away at one of the slots where you're playing your Haymaker Planeswalkers. And then you're just doubling something. But, like, remember, you're paying 5 mana for the privilege of doubling. And you need to get a combat.
What if you can discard it very reliably? What if you have, like, a deck that, like, discards?
I mean, there's planes like the red Planeswalkers very typically discard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess it gets better there. Yeah, so, like, B. Like, good.
Okay. If you're getting it in the great, if you're never paying the 5, it does get better.
I mean, the red Planeswalkers, a lot of them loot, right? And this is a red card, so you can loot it, and then it's valid, right?
Also, a lot of the Chandra's exile, and you got to play it this turn, so that's the risky part.
Right.
Are you're gonna feel like, priced into like I gotta spend 5 on this because I exiled it, and then you get sad.
I think there was like Chandra. There was like the Battle for Zendikar one that I remember, like the scars, and you draw that many +1. And stuff like there's a couple that are pretty or discard card. If you discard if it's a red card it deals extra damage, like that sort of fun stuff. But anyway,
final card, Spark Shaper Visionary, 2 and a blue, 3 mana, 0/5 human wizard. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose any number of target planeswalkers you control. Until end of turn, they become a 3/3 blue bird creature with flying hexproof, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, scry 1. So like Sarkin, but you're birds, and you're only 3/3s.
I put it as a C. Like I love Sarkhan, I really do. I like that it's a 0/5, so it has a decent blocking stat, but it doesn't really disincentivize attack that much, and it should have been draw card. Why Scry 1? Scry 1 is so ugh. I wish it was stronger.
It would be ridiculous if it drew cards, because that'd just be 3 mana draw. Like your planeswalkers being tapped doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
The fact that you
it's free.
attack with them is like irrelevant, right? So this is just like 3 mana, deal a bunch of damage, scry a bunch.
And then you have a 0/5 blocker, and
Yes.
I don't know, if it did more damage or something, I don't know.
But you like Sarkhan. This is just one-off Sarkhan, no?
If it's Sarkhan can make token like 4/4 dragon tokens, and it also hits for a lot harder, and it's a planeswalker itself.
Yeah, it is a planeswalker. I mean, I think it depends on what your deck's trying to do. Like, I think a lot of Super Friends decks aren't really trying to win by attacking with their planeswalkers. That's kind of like a niche within Super Friends that you're like planeswalker beatdown. If you're trying to do planeswalker beatdown, this card's great because there's just not that many ways to turn your planeswalkers into creatures. There's very few. On the other end, in a typical Super Friends deck, I don't know if I really care about even trying to like attack with my planeswalkers. So I would have it as like a low B, high C, somewhere in that range.
It's better in this precon because the precon actually tries to win with damage. So
yeah,
it does work with the goal of the deck, but still it feels really bad. Like this is a great like finisher, I guess. And even then,
What
sorry.
if it's
like
just
an
a
okay
value?
finisher.
What if it's a 3 mana 0/5 every turn, scry 2, scry 3, and then get some chip damage? Is that this is just a 3 mana card? Like this is a 0/5 3 mana card, right? Like you don't need to get that much value. So it's just the every turn scrying good enough?
Probably not.
No.
Like, do you
have
even
a
with
lot of
hexproof?
heuristic
Do you want to
studies.
turn your planeswalkers into creatures? Aren't there still risks that you get like instant speed wrath, settle the wreckage, etherize? Like, even isn't there some risk to just like willy nilly being like, here's 20 mana worth of planeswalkers, I'm gonna scry 2 this turn, and your opponent's like, oh, okay, sweet, I'm glad you did that. Like, GG, settle the wreckage.
I mean, if your opponent is playing white and has 4 mana, like maybe you don't do it, right? But I think it's relatively low risk because anything that can remove this probably could remove your planeswalker to begin with. I guess Swords to Plowshare. No, it has hexproof, right?
Source Flash, hexproof.
Yeah.
Like if you're
Yeah,
literally
so-
in a meta with Aetherrise and Sword and Settle, then yeah, maybe it gets worse. I don't know. It's
not
fine.
indestructible. Okay, so it has hexproof
Yeah.
but not indestructible. Yeah, so
Right.
yeah, I mean there is risk, but I don't
Edicts.
know. I mean, even if there was no risk, is it even worth it? I'm not even
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I don't
I think
feel like it's
I
It
Probably.
was
I wish it
literally
had,
just
a
like
little bit.
during your turn, scry 1 for each planeswalker you own or something. Is that?
I feel like
don't
even
know.
if it had like 1 power, then it could kill 1/1s that are just like attacking into it to deal chip damage to my planeswalkers. Like some sort of deterrent as a blocker would have made
There's
it
a lot of 0 power creatures in this deck, aren't there? Out of the new cards, I just am realizing a lot of
They want to
Wall-E
make
creatures.
it less. They want to make the planeswalker deck less oppressive, because planeswalker decks when they're popping off are very
Oh yeah.
very unfun to play against.
Yeah.
All right,
Which
there we have it.
Yeah.
So no S's from
Actually-
this deck.
No, I mean everything was very. Super
Everything's very
Friends.
Super Friends. Yeah.
Very Super Friends focused.
But
I guess
Teo.
Mateo.
Satu, you try Teo and tell me if I should. This is the new
All
secret.
right.
Secret Rendezvous is too mainstream. We gotta go more jank and more obscure.
Hipster.
So Teo.
Hipster rendezvous.
See if we
Yeah.
can make
Outside of
Teo
Super
work.
Friends, I'm not quite sure, but I want to see it. I mean, it is a cool card in general.
Yeah. It is.
There's
cool
a
with
4 mana
Bowmaster.
3/3 that when it ETBs, you both draw a card set. That's right up your alley. Do you want to? No, it's a 3 mana 3/3. Sorry.
I
So
will.
it's
I will
actually-
show you once the cards release. I will play this. This and Party Jason will all draw all the cards. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Okay, but when you choose, remember, I like Secret Rendezvous. Choose me. Don't remember the fact that I poo-pooed this card in not part a Super Friends list.
Seth, remember I was with you all the way, buddy.
Wow, we're already doing the politics
Already-
like 3 weeks ahead of the.
Yeah, we got it. This
gameplay,
one,
yeah.
this one's good. This one got to need the pre-politics. Okay, so that's our list. Let us know if you agree or disagree. Do you play Super Friends? Would you play the bird? Would you play what are the contested ones? Rookamarole. Would you play that over Morophon? I think that's a very interesting question.
That is an interesting question.
And how do you like Sliver Gravemother compared to the other 5 mana legendary slivers? That's also another interesting question. So let us know in the comments, and then we'll see you all back here next week. See you, everyone.